The story begins with a gloomy cave illuminated by the flickering light of bioluminescent mushrooms, also reminiscent of an icy basement. Among all this you can see cobwebs and spiders, but not simple ones, but huge ones, with large and sharp teeth. But the cave is not limited only to spiders. Human shoes can be seen behind one of the columns. The guy stood behind a column and the spiders, due to poor eyesight, could not notice him, although he was successfully watching them. The young man was holding a blade in his hands and was dressed like a superhero. His name was Fong Tan and he is a professional killer in this world. A notification screen opened in front of the boy. Right now he is completing the task of the shadow spider. He needs to kill him and then Fong Tan will receive experience and money. The guy watched the huge spider after evaluating all the possible rewards for successful execution. This world turned out to be a game world. Fong Tan has been living in it for 12 whole years, during which he managed to complete many tasks and become a real master in murder. 12 years ago, Fong Tan was involved in this game and only thanks to the rewards he receives for successful tasks, he is still alive. The game world is not so simple. It is full of all kinds of monsters and other hostile races. There is danger everywhere and you need to be very careful. In tasks such as this, there are a huge number of dangers that make it difficult for players like Fong Tan himself to complete. Fan Tan has already carried out the first attack on a huge spider, which is not the weakest opponent. Despite all the danger of the game world and the difficulty of survival, Fan Tan himself complains about this place. After 12 years of difficult assignments and contract killings, the guy has already gotten used to it and doesn't want to change anything. The fight with the spider continued and Fong Tan could not inflict significant damage on the huge arthropod. The guy was distracted from the fight by a huge notification that popped up right in front of his face and asked him to immediately leave the game for the next task. The guy's eyes were confused for a second, he lost concentration and was distracted from the fight, trying to think about what to do next. Fan Tan decided that it was worth continuing the fight with the spider and completing this task first, rather than moving on to the next one. But the fact that Fong Tan was distracted was taken advantage of by a huge spider, which repulsed the guy's attack and knocked him down on his back to the ground with its bite. The guy's arms weakened and his body received a strong blow, but he still tried to find the strength to get back to his feet. Fong Tan stood up and hurriedly left the battlefield to urgently leave the game, as he was asked to do in the notification. The guy opens the menu and looks for a button to leave the game and respond to the task. Finally, Fong Tan found the right button and put his palm there, after which the exit from the game began. A small portal opened from the menu, which should transport Fong Tan back to the real world. The exit did not happen instantly and the guy was shown his statistics and asked to prepare for the transfer. He spent 112,129 hours and 23 minutes in the game. For all 12 years, the guy didn't even think about leaving the game world and no longer remembers what the reality in which he lived looks like. In a very dark corner of the city, where no one was there, a portal from the game world opened. Fong Tan, who had not been here for 12 whole years in a row, emerged from the bright portal. Fong Tan appreciated the real world and found it strange that he had been given tasks for 12 years in the game, and now he was asked to go out into the real world. The guy also looked at his hand, which was attacked by a huge spider, and decided that he needed to treat the wound, because the poison had a paralyzing effect. Fong Tan sat on the box and began to wrap the wound, saying that the level 20 spider was really strong, as they said it was. A hand reached out to the guy's back and wanted to grab his cloak. Fong Tan sensed this movement and sharply dodged the stranger's hand from behind. Fong Tan pointed the blade at the man's throat and he noted that the guy's reflexes were always in excellent condition. Fong Tan recognized the man and realized that this stranger was Uncle Hubbard. The guy lowered the blade from his throat. The man's name is Hubbard. He was the person who gives tasks in the game and constantly did this for Fong Tan. Hubbard lit a cigarette and hit Fong Tan's head with a folder, saying that this was his new assignment. Fong Tan took the folder and tried to ask Hubbard, "What is this task that is outside the game world?" Hubbard replied that this task is a little special and Fong Tan can use it as an assessment. The man wants the guy to get to know this man. There was a file of one man, T27. In the file it was written that he was the chairman of the trade union. Hubbard warned the guy that this mission would take a long time and asked him to make sure that no one knew his secret. The man took Fong Tang by the shoulder and continued talking about the mission and how important it was not to reveal himself. Hubbard especially noted that Fong Tan should not use his powers in the real world and should not use his way into the game. Fong Tan said that he would burn the file and conjured fire from his palms, which enraged Hubbard. The man hit the boy on the head and reminded him that he should not use his powers in the real world. Hubbard also said that the guy's clothes would make everyone think he was a cosplayer and would attract unnecessary attention, which meant they needed to be replaced. Fan Tan did not understand what they were talking about and Hubbard suggested that they first go out to take a look at the city. The man opened a huge door that stood right in front of the guy's face and went out onto the street. Fong Tang's cloak began to straighten out a little from the slight wind and he finally saw the city. The guy was dazzled by the modern world, in which everything glowed and resembled a huge disco. Fan Tan said that he felt a little tense in this environment, and Hubbard replied that this was the norm, because the guy had been in the gaming world since childhood. Fan Tan examined his new place and said that he would cope with the task perfectly. Hubbard decided that the guy should be helped on how to behave better in society and give 2 pieces of advice. Firstly, when Fong Tan feels embarrassed, he should continue to smile kindly. But the second advice from Hubbard was more important and he even took a short pause before talking about it. The man told the guy that when he looks for a girl, it is better to choose the one with large breasts. Fong Tan asked why, and Hubbard, with a blank eye, replied that women with large breasts were terrible. Fong Tan did not understand what was being said, but decided to agree with Hubbard in order not to listen to even more information. Against the backdrop of the bright night sky, Hubbard said the guy was ready and could get to work. After some time, a man's hand held a photo frame and the man looked at it carefully. The photograph showed 2 young people in suits, with a car in the background, their faces very joyful. The girl reported to her boss that recently there have been frequent changes in their jurisdiction and this is strange, but the man said that everything will be fine. The girl adjusted her glasses and quietly said that the same guy could be found. The man was interested in this news and in a trembling and excited voice he asked where exactly he was found. The girl replied that the West Side Public Safety Bureau had found his whereabouts. The man got up from his chair and, putting his hand on the table, asked to be taken there urgently. The evening continues at the city police station, where the missing guy was found this evening. Fong Tan was already without his suit, the guy was sitting in ordinary clothes and with a plaster on his left cheek, opposite the police officers. Fong Tan thought about the commander of the 3rd District T-27. First of all he was interested in whether it would be possible to deceive the man. A few hours ago, while Fong Tan was changing clothes, Hubbard explained to the guy his story, a young tramp who was kidnapped by human traffickers 10 years ago. Hubbard added that Tang Ran would definitely come for the guy and take him away, but the man was not that simple, and the mentor also asked Fong Tang not to be frivolous and not to rush until he received the next instructions. Fong Tan put his hand to his forehead and understood that this task would be much more difficult than solving problems with shadow spiders. Tang Ran asked his employee where the found guy was now and the girl pointed to the door and added that he was inside. The man heard this and immediately started knocking on the door. Tang Ran couldn't wait any longer to meet Fong Tan. The employee who was looking after Fong Tan immediately ran to the door, realizing that Tang Ran was now standing behind it. The employee hurriedly began to open the door and showed Tang Ran where the found guy was sitting. Tang Ran and her assistant entered the office and the man tried to quickly find Fong Tang with his eyes. Fong Tan examined Tang Ran from under his hand and recalled all the information about him. Now the commander of the 3rd District T-27 is the main target of his mission. Tang Ran looked at the withdrawn guy, and his assistant explained that he was mistreated by human traffickers and he still couldn't get over it. Tang Ran tried to touch Fong Tang to take a closer look, but the guy didn't give in. Fong Tan, getting used to the role, began to turn away from the man's hand, as if he had really been a prisoner of human traffickers for 10 years. Tang Ran tried to win over the guy and said that he was a friend of his father. When Fong Tan was a child, he remembered him well. Fong Tan raised his head and decided to agree with the man, realizing that he had already made the impression of a victim. In the morning, Tang Ran brought Fan Tan to his home after a difficult night at the police station. Tang Ran led the guy to his new room, which looked quite normal. There was everything a teenager needed. Tang Ran explained to the new guest that this was now his personal room and he would live here. The guy noticed a photograph. the same one was at Tang Rant's work. It showed two young people in front of a car. Surprised, Fong Tan asked the man if Tang Ran was standing with his father in this photo, but the conversation between Fan Tan and Tang Ran was interrupted by a girl's voice that came from the door to the room. It was a young girl who asked what her new neighbor looked like. Was he handsome, tall, what kind of hair did he have? Tang Ran introduced the girl. It was his daughter. He asked her not to pester the guy, and Fong Tan explained that he could approach her to get to know the environment. The girl stood in the doorway and she looked very beautiful. She stood in a modest pose, but her pretty face, hair and outfit attracted attention. Of course, Fong Tan found the girl interesting, because she was really cute, and her outfit fascinated the guy who had recently seen only huge spiders. The girl herself moved closer to Fong Tan, and the guy drew attention to her shoes and legs, which were approaching him in small steps. The girl was already quite close to the guy and said that since they now live in the same house, they need to get to know each other. The guy put 2 fingers on his shoulder, using a greeting from the game world, and said that his name was Fong Tan. The girl laughed and said that his actions were similar to the greeting from the game, which is often used by professional NPC killers. The girl also used a greeting from the game world, after which she introduced herself and said that her name was Tang Qian and she was a magician. Fong Tan said that the profession of a magician is very strong and difficult, but he also asked what is an NPC. Tang Qian ran her finger along the guy's chin and said that he looks 9 out of 10 and seems very shy. They shouldn't have any problems. Tang Qian said that now that they had met and become acquainted, she could take the guy to some fun place. Tang Qian was already dragging the guy by the hand around the city and saying that they had come to that very fun place. A gaming club that was located in the city turned out to be a fun place for Tang Qian. In the club itself there were many guys in virtual reality helmets who were passionate about the game. But besides the guys, there were also girls who also wore special helmets and got into local games. Tang Qian pulled Fong Tang by the hand and showed everything that was happening around and explained what people were doing here. Fan Tan asked the girl what was so interesting about this place, and Tang Qian confidently answered that it was a gaming club. Here everyone plays the game Fantasy. In order to start the game you need to put the device on your head and you will find yourself in the game world. The game world is very detailed, everything is realistic and very interesting for every player. Fong Tan wondered why this game was called the same as the game world in which he lived for 10 years of his life. Tang Qian said that Fong Tan was lucky, because she had a game today and she would show what was done here and how it was done. Some guy in a school uniform approached the girl and indignantly asked Tang Qian why she had not come here for so long. The guy explained that today they fought physics class against chemistry. The chemistry class called for help and they were beaten by 0-3. Tang Qian decided to introduce the guys and told Fong Tan that this was her classmate Jianbing. The guys greeted each other and Tang Qian reached for a special virtual reality helmet. The girl told Fong Tan that she would meet this guy in the game first, so the guy would have to wait a little. Fong Tan said that he would have no problem waiting and watching the girl play. The girl put on the helmet and Jianbing, calling her boss Tang, said that the physics class needed her. Opponent Tang Jian asked about choosing the mode in which they would compete, base or peak. The girl, without hesitation, replied that she would only fight in peak mode, win or lose. The guy approved her decision and added that he would beat Tang Jian in any mode without any problems. The participants exchanged a few more words and now the game began in the gaming arena. A joyful Jianbing held Fong Tang by the shoulder and said that in peak mode they have a much better chance. Surprised, Fan Tan asked why they have more chances in peak mode than in base mode. Jianbing explained that if the participants had chosen the basic mode, then the guy could have equipment much stronger than Tang Jian. And in peak mode, both sides of the battle have the same number of points to distribute into skills. Their equipment is balanced by the properties of the points, so they both have the same chances. Moreover, they lost 3 matches, and if they lose all 5, then their team will have to pay for internet access for the opposing class for the entire month. Fan Tan said that this is not surprising, because when it comes to money, neither party really wants to lose. And then both participants in the battle appeared in the arena to the amusement of fans and spectators. Tang Jian's appearance was no different from her real appearance, only the clothes and equipment of the game world made it clear that she was currently in the game. The girl's opponent looked very formidable, the guy had a huge hammer, a shield and huge armor as weapons. Fang Tan apparently recognized this place. He remembered that he knew this arena, it was from the very world where he spent all 10 years. Next, the guy looked at Tang Jian's real body in the game model, not understanding how the guys could be in two worlds at the same time. And then the first attack rushed onto the battlefield. Tang Jian released a huge fireball. The girl released many fire attacks, and Fang Tan learned this trick. The fireball can be used by magicians of at least the 25th level, which is quite a lot. Fang Tan watched the battle with admiration. The girl's opponent managed to cope with some magical attacks. Tang Jian decided to look up her opponent's information after her attack, seeing that he didn't seem to care about the fireballs. An interface opened before the girl's eyes and she saw that her continuous attack had only taken off a quarter of her opponent's health. His defense was too good and she needed to restore her magic to make another attack. The opponent ironically noted that the girl would no longer be able to inflict an attack with magic, and the previous one did not cause significant damage to him. The guy rushed into his attack with screams. He swung a huge hammer and headed towards the girl. Tang Jian decided to upset the guy and said that a real magician can always use his magic. The girl hit the ground with her staff with a huge swing to cause ice spikes. Small pieces of ice began to appear from the floor, which became more and more numerous, and in the end they managed to fix one of the guy's legs. Spectators from the girl's team began to enthusiastically praise her for her successful trick, because in the arena it is not so easy to hit with ice spikes. Now her opponent will not be able to move and will begin to freeze. Many in the gaming club admired such a successful action from Tang Jian. Jianbing, who did not want their team to lose, was the most rooting for the girl. Even Fang Tan noticed that Tang Jian was a very strong and intelligent mage as he watched her fight in the battle arena. Opponent Tang Jian did not worry much about the missed abilities and even smiled slyly. Fang Tan realized that this was all not easy and apparently the guy had some kind of trump card hidden that he would soon throw away. Fan Tan noticed an unusual red light that enveloped the guy's body and recognized a wild charge in this technique. The guy began to transform, his body became larger and more powerful, and his leg escaped from the icy shackles. Tang Jian was surprised that the ice spikes did not work and her opponent was able to use his powers, and the guy rushed to run towards the girl. Tang Jian tried to escape from her angry opponent and placed an ice shield in front of her body, but this did not stop the big man and at great speed he tore through this shield and got to the girl. From the strong push, Tang Jian flew to the other end of the arena and crashed into the wall with her back on herself. Tang Jian felt a worse condition and dizziness. After a strong blow from her opponent, she could not immediately recover. Jianbing said in horror that it was a wild charge. The guy was able to avoid the ice spikes at such a close distance, which means he will become an unpleasant problem for Tang Jian. Jianbing was seized with panic. He thought that the battle was already lost, because Tang was stunned and would not be able to resist a melee warrior in this state. The guy swung a huge hammer over the unconscious girl and was preparing to strike the final blow. The fiery hammer quickly flew towards the defeated girl and the guy was already ready to end the battle. Tang Jian's health indicators began to plummet and she already realized that she had lost this battle. The gaming club appreciated the skills of the guy who easily defeated Tang Jian and began to welcome him. But among all this crowd there was one puzzled Fan Tan, who saw that the girl was seriously wounded after the battle. The guy looked at Tang Jian, who was sitting in a special virtual reality helmet, and asked if everything was okay with her. Then Tang Jian's opponent came up, mocked the girl and repeated that she had lost. The guy reminded that the score between their teams was now 4-0, they had only one game left. The young man offered to play it right now. Tang Jian heard her opponent address her and began to take off her helmet and return to the real world from the game world. The girl took off her helmet and straightened her hair, looking around. To Fang Tan's surprise there were no injuries on her. Fan Tan wondered how the girl could not only survive, but remain without a single scratch after such a brutal battle. Tang Jian turned to her team and said that they had to fight and fight so as not to lose to the physics class. Tang Jian asked her team, which of them wants to participate in the battle now? No one responded to such a proposal. The entire team shrugged their shoulders and looked away in the other direction. Tang Jian was furious at her team's behavior and called each of them simply cowards. Fang Tan wondered why the damage received in Fantasia disappears when people leave the game world. this is of course none of his business, but he must find out for himself what is happening. The self-confident Fong Tan said that he wants to fight in the last battle if everyone is afraid. Surprised, Tang Jian didn't know how to react to this proposal, but she also understood that there was no one but the guy to play. She took Fong Tan by the shoulder and expressed her surprise that the guy could play Fantasia. Tang Jian assured the guy that everything would work out for him and that he was an excellent player. Then the girl said that the last round depended on him. And now Tang Jian had already thrown the guy into the gaming chair, and Fong Tan was trying to say that he just wanted to try. The joyful Tang Jian put the helmet on the frightened guy, and he said that he saw this thing for the first time in his life and did not know how it worked. And now the helmet was already on Fan Tan's head. The guy himself decided to compare and check how you can enter fantasy through this helmet. Fong Tan began to look around and realized that this was the same feeling as when he himself entered the game world. To the guy's surprise, the verification of information about the player began, as well as the integration of all data. The guy himself stood in front of the screen and noticed that he had never seen him before in the game world. In front of Fan Tan there was a screen with a choice of modes and settings. The surprised guy asked himself what it was. Next, Fong Tang received a notification that the player Sai of the Savage had challenged him, and he had the choice of accepting or rejecting it. Fong Tan realized that Savage Sai was the same guy who had just fought against Tang Jian. In any case, you will have to accept the challenge, because Fong Tan promised that he would take part in the last round. Fan Tan accepted the challenge and a menu for distributing points and selecting equipment opened in front of him. And delighted Tang Jian watched her new friend and expected a decent performance from him. Fong Tang had to choose a class. The choices were Assassin, Warrior and Magician, and all their possible abilities were also described. Fong Tan began to examine the skills of each class and evaluate them. This could all be learned in his world. The guy's choice fell on the Assassin class, because in his game world he was also a professional killer. Fan Tan closed his eyes and his old clothes, in which he first left the game world, returned to him. The guy's eyes began to look at his new attire and he recognized it as his killer costume from the game world. Also, a notification appeared in front of the guy's face that the player Tang Jian wanted to add him as a friend. Tang Jian started yelling at the guy to choose his skills as quickly as possible, because the battle would start soon. A notification also appeared that the enemy player Lu He had already finished making his choice and in 20 seconds the battle would begin forcibly, and Fong Tan decided not to invent anything and choose the skills that he already knew and had previously mastered. The choice of player skills was completed and the battle participants were transferred to the battlefield. Fong Tan began to be transported to the location where the duel with Lu He would take place. The location for the battle turned out to be a dense forest, where Lu He was already standing ready for battle. Lu He had not seen Fong Tan on the battlefield before and was unhappy that the battle would take place in a dense forest, which was generally not suitable for a warrior. Jianbing asked where Fong Tan was, why he was still not visible on the screen, and Tang Jian replied that he was a killer and had to sneak up on his opponent unnoticed. Tang Jian wanted to believe that her new friend would not lose this battle and they could take at least one round against the physics team. Jianbin had a different opinion. He had already attributed defeat to his team ahead of schedule. He said that a warrior with enormous strength and protection guarantees the end for an inexperienced and weak killer. Lu He never found the guy on the battlefield. He realized that if his opponent was not in his sight for so long, then he was a murderer. Meanwhile, Fong Tan was hiding behind a tree and could see everything perfectly from behind his opponent. Fong Tan noticed that his opponent was in a defensive position and looked like a very experienced fighter, but in the jungle arena, an assassin would always have an advantage. After briefly observing his opponent, Fong Tan finally decided to go on the attack. The guy tried to deliver a covert strike from behind so that the opponent would not understand where the attack came from. Everything looked good and now the guy's blade was close to Lu He's unprotected back. But to the great surprise of Fong Tan himself, he was unable to cope with the blow and flew past Lu He. Surprised, Fong Tan did not understand how he could miss his opponent's throat, because he prepared well and aimed before attacking. Lu He saw how they were trying to attack him and decided to respond with his shield. The warrior used Gognus's shield, but Fong Tan was able to hide from this blow and not receive serious damage. The warrior landed directly on the ground in front of Fong Tan and pulled out his shield back as Fong Tan tried to retreat. Lu He swung his huge hammer and summoned strong winds with it. The warrior spun his hammer at great speed, creating a strong wind around him. Fang Tan was again visited by the strange feeling he experienced when he tried to attack the warrior from behind. The killer himself tried to dodge Lu He's powerful attack and began to run away from the wind. Fang Tan thought about that strange feeling and didn't understand why it didn't go away from the moment she entered the game. But Fang Tan was unable to completely dodge the warrior's attacks and had to block with his blades. The guy's health began to decline rapidly and his indicator dropped to half. Fang Tan asked his opponent what was happening here and why he couldn't reflect anything. Lu He replied that the guy is not a beginner and chose an assassin, although the jungle arena is an ideal place for assassins, but a warrior will always defeat him. Next, the warrior began to spin his hammer and said that he did not want to waste time and would end this right now. The warrior was already prepared to deliver the final blow and win this battle, as well as the series, by 5-0. Fang Tan nervously looked at his health indicators and began to believe in his defeat. But then the game asked the guy to turn off the free mode so that the player could fight using his skills and abilities on his own. Lu He was already flying with his whole body towards the guy to deliver the final blow and end this round. On their screens, viewers saw a small explosion from the warrior's blow, which frightened them quite a bit. Tang Jian's team froze in anticipation of their defeat. They no longer believed in the new Fang Tan. Fang Tan continued to look at the notifications and wondered what kind of free mode this was. At that time, his opponent was already celebrating his victory and was preparing to destroy Fang Tan with a swing of his hammer. Fan Tan realized that there was almost nothing to do and decided to try to activate the free mode. A huge hammer was already falling on the killer's head, which Lu He was swinging right in front of the enemy's face. To the warrior's great surprise, Fan Tan tried to repel his powerful attack. The attempt was successful and the hammer did not reach its target. Lu He was very surprised by this outcome of events. Lu He, the warrior, counterbalanced, flew back a couple of meters and asked Fang Tan if he had turned on the free mode. Fang Tan did not respond after repelling the attack, but simply remained standing in his stance. Then the guy seemed to have fallen through the ground or become invisible, because Lu He could no longer see him. Tang Jian and Jianbing watched everything from the screen and the guy was surprised that Fang Tan was using free mode. Jianbing said that he had never seen anything like this directly in battle and asked Tang Jian where she found such an expert. The girl herself did not expect this and said that she did not think that Fang Tan could be so good. Tang Jian said that players usually choose semi-free mode using game programs for ease of operation. But only advanced players and professionals will be able to launch the free mode and play it adequately. Only advanced players, because in free mode they can use their own skills and abilities. Tang Jian had already guessed what might happen if Fang Tan entered free mode as an assassin. Lu He stood trying to find the guy with his eyes and hoped to understand whether the free mode helped the killer in repelling his attack or was it just a coincidence. But this did not frighten the warrior, because even if the guy is in free mode, it is still very difficult to control him and in the end the killer must lose to a more experienced player. Meanwhile, the hidden Fang Tan was throwing and spinning his sharp blades. The guy was hiding in the jungle and couldn't get enough of the fact that he could finally move easily and use his skills and abilities in free mode. Fang Tan saw his target and quickly jumped straight towards it with his blades in his hands. The guy's jump was very sharp, but equally invisible to the enemy. This time he did much better and was able to land a successful attack in the warrior's back. The warrior received critical damage from an unexpected attack and his health indicator decreased. While Lu He was trying to figure out why he received so much damage from one blow, Fang Tan was already circling around him, preparing his next attack. The warrior tried to counterattack Fang Tan and catch his body with his shield in order to deal with the enemy, who already had little health. Fan Tan considered this blow too naive and dodged it without any difficulty. And then, the agile and experienced killer began his second attack on the warrior. In a beautiful somersault, he tried to jump behind his opponent to once again deal critical damage to the warrior. And this time, the agile and experienced killer succeeded, his blades reached their target, and the warrior did not have time to dodge. Lu He again felt critical damage to his back, which made him very upset. The warrior already thought that victory was in his pocket, but Fang Tan's body was too fast and agile, it was impossible to hit him. Fong Tan himself seemed to be full of strength and had not fought just now, his attacks could not stop. And the killer managed to place one of his blades directly on Lu He's neck. Fong Tan realized that he was too strong for such amateurs. But Lu He did not lose hope of his victory and tried to grab his hammer to deliver the final blow. Realizing that the enemy had very little health, the warrior put all his strength into his blow and tried to catch Fong Tang. This time Fan Tan did not have time to dodge the powerful blow and seemed to crumble into pieces. The killer's health went to zero and unexpectedly Lu He saw his victory over the enemy. The screen signaled that the game was over and Lu He was the winner. The audience could not accept that the free mode guy had lost. Fong Tang's body was carried back to the lobby from the scene of the battle with the warrior. Fong Tan seemed to be floating in the air in front of the huge main menu screen. As the guy thought, the game is different from the world where he lived for 10 years, and even after his death he did not actually die. Fong Tan looked at his suit and thought that he could train in this way. Next, the guy chose to exit the game in the main menu and went back to the real world. Fong Tan took off his virtual reality helmet immediately after exiting the game. After the guy took off his helmet, he exhaled heavily, his new knowledge and this battle a little tired. Jianbing hugged Fong Tang and said that he had succeeded and almost won against one of the best players. Fong Tan scratched his head a little and apologized to his new acquaintances for losing. Jianbing called the guy a great master and asked him not to be upset, because he was still very cool and looked good against a strong opponent. Tang Jian tried to say something to her new friend based on his performance, but she was interrupted. And the girl was interrupted by Lu He, who told Fong Tan that he could have won with an attack in the back, but for some reason he did not do so. The surprised crowd of friends turned to take a closer look at Lu He, who approached them from behind. Lu He asked Fong Tang in surprise, why did he stop and not attack him in the back? Fong Tan wary his gaze and at first did not want to answer his opponent. But after a couple of seconds, Fong Tan said with a smile that he was simply not used to the controls yet. Tang Jiang and Fong Tan were returning home from the gaming club together and the girl told her new friend that he was a great guy. She praised the guy for making one of the best players. Lu He, sweat. Opening the door, Tang Jian saw a picture that made her feel a little awkward. Tang Ran stood right in front of the door and asked his daughter where she took Fong Tang. Tang Jian took off her shoes and said that she was just showing the guy around and taking him around. Then the embarrassed girl, under the condemning glances of her father, quickly ran away from her room. Tang Ran told his new neighbor that he had made an appointment for him to see a doctor and they would go to the hospital together. Surprised, Fan Tan asked why he needed to see a doctor, because he was not sick and felt great. Tang Ran replied that the guy is really fine, but he just knows what he went through and is worried about him, and Dr. Liao is an expert in psychology. Fong Tan thought about it, because Tang Ran really thinks that the guy was kidnapped by human traffickers, because otherwise he wouldn't treat him like that. It doesn't look like he's faking it. Tang Ran noticed the guy's thoughtfulness and decided to ask him if everything was okay or maybe he didn't like something. Fong Tan said that they have been friends for 10 years and he has a strong faith that is contagious to others. Tang Ran was made to think by the guy's words and was speechless for a couple of seconds. Next, the man repeated the words of the guy who spoke about strong faith and wanted to add something, but did not dare. Fong Tan tried to find out what Tang Ran wanted to say and asked him about it. The man did not want to answer this question or explain anything to Fong Tan, so he simply said that there was nothing. Next, in order to change the topic, Tang Ran told Fong Tang that he enrolled him in school so that he could fit into normal life faster and he was now in the same class with Tang Qian, so they would have to go to school together. Then the man simply got up from the couch and went to his room away from the young guy's questions. Fan Tan rightly noted that the man avoided his question and did not want to answer the inconvenient. Next, the guy recalled his childhood, how he asked one of his mentors, Master Carl, about his father. Master Carl replied that his father was a hero and this knowledge should be enough, after which he patted Fong Tang on the head. Fong Tan looked at Tang Ran's back and, remembering his status, rank and position, tried to understand what exactly he was hiding. The action moves to the local hospital, where Tang Ran promised to take Fong Tang. Tang Ran reassured the guy, saying that life was different here and he shouldn't be nervous, there was no longer any danger to his life or freedom. Tang Ran opened the door to the office and explained to Fong Tan that Dr. Liao was inside and was ready to listen to the guy, while the man himself would wait for him outside. Dr. Liao stood right in front of his office window with a small daddy under his arm. Fang Tan slowly and reluctantly entered the office. The guy did not fully understand why he was here. The doctor heard a new client enter his office and immediately turned around to assess him. The man recognized the guy and called him by name and said that he was his new psychologist, and Fang Tan could feel at home. Fang Tan sat down in the chair directly opposite Dr. Liao. The guy still couldn't figure out what was worth talking about. Fang Tan continued to look at the doctor with his surprised gaze without saying a word. And the doctor, holding a tablet in his hands, was preparing to write down every word his client would say. Dr. Liao said that he had been informed of the guy's situation, but before they started, the psychologist would need the guy's cooperation. The man walked behind Fang Tang and asked him to answer a few questions. The doctor brought the pen to the guy's neck and tried to stick it straight into his throat. But professional killer Fang Tan anticipated this trick and was able to dodge the handle. Next, the guy turned to face the doctor and hit him in the face with his fist. A tablet with all the notes jumped out of the psychologist's hands and pieces of paper scattered throughout the office. Fang Tan put his hand to the doctor's neck and pressed him against the wall, asking him who he really was. The doctor tried to greedily inhale oxygen and with the last of his strength said that the test was successful. Then the doctor ran his hand over his face and purple dust appeared around his face. Next, the man changed his appearance from a psychologist to Uncle Hubbard, and Fang Tan immediately recognized him. The man said that it was his level 37 mask. Then he asked the guy how he managed to see it. Fang Tan said that his instincts told him about this, and even more so, Hubbard tried to attack him. Hubbard said that he accepted the guy's explanations and went to the sofa that was standing nearby. The man sat down on the sofa and began asking the guy about the task and his relationship with Tang Ran. Did they communicate normally? Fan Tan asked to discuss this sometime later, but now the guy had questions for Hubbard about the game. Hubbard immediately guessed what happened and asked the guy if he used a helmet to enter the game. Without waiting for an answer, he realized that Fang Tan had already done this and everything happened much faster than Hubbard had imagined. Fang Tan asked Hubbard with interest what was wrong with this game, hinting that ordinary people also play it and do not die. Hubbard explained that there are only 2 ways to enter the Fantasia game world. Surprised, Fan Tan asked to tell us more about these methods, because he had experienced both of them himself. The first is the Essence method, which is the method that Fang Tan used 10 years ago when he first entered the game world. But there is also a second method, Virtual Access, which the guy only recently experienced. Hubbard said that their plans were currently going quite well, with their people making a bit of noise in as many as 3 zones of the game world. Fan Tang's next task is to use the virtual state to study the game in detail, but there is one catch. A physical access method like when Fang Tan teleported directly into the game world should not be detected by anyone. Fang Tan nodded his head and confirmed that he understood the essence of his task and would adhere to the rules. Then in the corridor Tang Ran's phone was called and the man himself responded to the loud ringtone. Tang Ran put the phone to his ear and asked his subordinates what happened this time. The staff reported to their commander that 3 fantasy zones had been attacked and they could not find a trace of who could have done it. This news infuriated Tang Ran. The door from the psychologist's office was opened by the hand of Dr. Liao, who ended the conversation with Fang Tan. Hubbard, in the guise of Dr. Liao, and Fang Tan came out to Tang Ran, who continued to talk on the phone. The man paid attention to them, but did not part with his phone yet and continued to hold it to his ear. Next, he turned to Fang Tan and Liao, saying on the phone that he would return to the station in a minute, after which he hung up. Tang Ran put the phone in his inner pocket and asked Dr. Liao how Fang Tan was doing and what was wrong with him. Hubbard, disguised as Dr. Liao, said that treatment takes time, so it is better to come here every week for an examination. In addition, he would suggest some contact with external things. The doctor said that things like games will help the guy cope with stress and he will become less afraid of strangers. The men shook hands and Tang Ran said that he understood the doctor's words and would do everything possible to help the guy. Fang Tan and Tang Ran returned home after visiting the doctor and the man announced that they had arrived. In Tang Ran's hands were boxes of gaming helmets, just like the ones in the club. Tang Jian turned around to see what her father was saying so happily and calmly. The enthusiastic girl threw away her mug of tea when she saw the boxes of helmets. Tang Jian said that these are the latest gaming helmets and she has been dreaming of one for a very long time. Tang Ran said that all this was bought for Fong Tang, because the doctor said that the games would help him not be afraid of strangers and quickly return to normal life. Tang Ran said that he had to go on a business trip and asked his daughter to take care of Fong Tan, and he also warned her not to let Tang Jian play alone. The girl could not tear herself away from the new helmets and assured her father that she would do everything as he said. The girl's pleasure knew no bounds and she, grabbing the boxes, called Fong Tan to follow her. Fong Tan followed the girl, and Tang Ran looked at all this and thought that finally the guy could feel better while he was communicating with his daughter. The girl said that Fong Tan was very strong in the game yesterday and asked what level is he at now. Fong Tan replied that he had not actually played this game for a long time since he was a child, it was his last time, but his answer was slurred and his voice was trembling. The girl asked the guy if he meant that he last played as a child and hasn't been there since then. Fong Tan answered hesitantly that everything was so, after which he turned his eyes to the side. The girl remembered that when they played in the club, Fong Tan managed to inflict 2 critical damage and a final attack in the back. Confused, Fong Tan replied that it was simply an instinctive defensive reaction in times of danger. Tang Jian's eyes looked straight into the guy's face and seemed to want to say something. Tang Jian put her hand on the shoulder of the confused Fong Tang, apparently she guessed something. The girl said that Fong Tang has great potential and can become a brilliant fantasy player. Fong Tan already thought that he had been discovered, but when he heard that the girl simply praised him, he laughed nervously. Tang Jian began to assemble the gaming helmets and was already connecting them to power. Now the helmets were completely ready and the admiring Tang Jian could not take her eyes off them. Tang Jian asked the guy if he had loaded into the game world and he replied that he had loaded. The girl said that in this case she would wait for him at the place where all the newcomers appear. Fong Tan began to carefully put on his helmet and said that he would definitely find a girl in the game world. A couple with helmets have already begun their immersion into the gaming world of fantasy. The guy opened his eyes to the familiar world where he spent the last 10 years of his life. In his killer costume, he showed off in the main menu. The download was not over yet, but everything was supposed to happen soon. In the main menu there was a familiar sign that asked the player to select a game mode, adventure, or battle. Fan Tan remembered what Tang Jian told him and chose adventure mode. A notification appeared in front of the guy, which said that the player's history had been discovered. Since it was discovered that the game was played without authentication, he had a choice. There were several options: delete the recording and start over, start the game at the last save point, or quit the game, and also a warning that once the game recording is deleted, it will not be possible to restore it. Fong Tan thought about deleting the game record, which was not even intended for Uncle Hubbard. The player chose to delete the game record, after which the deletion of all data began. The removal process continued for quite a long time and Fong Tan waited all this time. Then the process of character regeneration, data integration and other game processes began. At the very end, the game asked to choose a new nickname for the character and the guy chose Fong Tan. After being notified with information about adventure mode, Fong Tan appeared in a new world. Fan Tan began to look around, trying to remember something from his past playthrough. The guy noticed for himself that this city is not much different from the one in which he lived before. The city looked like an ordinary game world in which Fong Tan spent his entire childhood. The guy examined his glasses and they were like a beginner's, but fortunately he still has the skills that he has practiced for many years. But then a girl approached the guy from behind, tapped him on the shoulder and called him by name. The frightened guy turned around after the girl called him by name. It was Tang Jian in her in-game form, who promised to meet Fong Tan at the beginner spawn. The girl said that since Fong Tan was a newbie, she would help him with leveling up, and then invited him to the team. The surprised guy asked the girl about pumping, not understanding what they were talking about. Tang Jian replied that they would now fight monsters and grabbed the guy's hand and led him along. The couple was already walking through the forest and Tang Jian was introducing the guy to the local gaming world. Tang Jian said that in order to turn Fong Tang into an expert, there are several important points that she would like to show the guy to avoid trouble. An incomprehensible monster that resembled a snake crawled up to the couple from behind. The girl immediately reacted to this and turned around. Behind the guy's back, right next to his leg, a huge black spot was dragging along the grass, like an eel between algae. A huge animal jumped into the guy's back and tried to attack him while he was powerless. Tang Jian screamed to warn her friend of the danger and grabbed her magic staff. The girl fired a magic shot from her staff at the unwanted animal to protect Fang Tang. The black animal flew back into the grass from the blow, only now neutralized and unable to move. The guy's sign lit up next to his head, indicating that he had earned 5 experience points. A notification also appeared in front of him, saying that his level had been raised to 1 and he was assigned 3 points. Fang Tan asked what it was and Tang Jian said that apparently the guy really didn't play any games. The girl explained that these are destination points, they are the main characteristics of the player. The initial characteristics of each player are 5 and with each level they increase by 3. There are only 4 types of characteristics, namely strength, agility, endurance and intelligence. Strength for example increases attack and defense, agility increases the chance of critical damage and evasion. Stamina increases stamina and defense, and intelligence increases mana and its recovery, but beyond that there are other ways to improve stats, equipment, skill upgrades, and so on. Fang Tan looked at his characteristics and thought, if everyone should have 5, then why are they different for him? Tang Jian said that today the guy will need to reach the 10th level so that he can find a mentor to transfer and learn skills. Tang Jian continued to fend off the small beast's attacks with her ice missiles. When a guy meets the basic skill requirements, he will be able to choose a profession for himself. And if Fang Tan can find himself a mentor, then his mentor will be able to teach the guy skills. Fang Tan thought about the fact that he had been living in fantasy for 10 years, but during the training process he had only learned 2 skills, namely backstabbing and dagger. Fang Tan asked Tang Jian, does this mean that if he becomes an assassin, he can learn all the skills of the assassin system from his mentor? While Fan Tan and Tang Jian were dealing with local monsters to gain points and experience, a letter flew towards them. The letter was addressed to Tang Jian. In this game world it was a way of transmitting messages. The girl did not expect that someone could distract her from teaching Fang Tang, but she still decided to see what was inside. It was the frightened Jianbing who called Tang Jian for help because he couldn't cope on his own. The girl apologized to the guy and said that she was asked to help. She wanted to help Fang Tang reach the 10th level and find him a mentor, but she could not refuse Jianbin. Fan Tan asked if level 10 would be enough for him to find a mentor. Tang Jian explained that basically, in addition to the level, you still need a little money and meet the performance requirements. The girl asked Fang Tang how many levels he was missing to reach the 10th level and he showed his statistics. Surprised, Tang Jian saw the 7th level and realized that the guy still had a little time left. Tang Jian suggested going to the tailor shop in the beginner village and taking on a task to expand the inventory, and these monsters would give the guy enough materials to complete the quest and he would also gain experience. Fang Tan opened his inventory and asked about the task of expanding the inventory in the newcomer village. Tang Jian added that this is not a difficult task and will not take much time, especially since all the necessary materials are already there. When Tang Jian left, she said that she would go to help Jianbin, but when she returned, she would pick up the guy from the tailor shop. Fang Tan assumed his killer pose and continued to fight the monsters on his own. After some time, the guy finally returned to the village for beginners to find the initial task. Fang Tan walked through the village and realized that fighting without a dagger was very inconvenient, so he needed to look at the task that Tang Jian was talking about. Seeing the corresponding sign, Fang Tan realized that this was a tailor shop and headed there. The guy knocked on the front door and then opened it in the hope of quickly taking on the task. Behind the counter was the tailor shop owner, Kong, who was busy with his work. Fang Tan asked the man if he could take the task from him, and then walked closer to the counter. He pulled out all the necessary resources and laid them out in front of the store owner. Khan said that the guy came prepared, with all the necessary materials, which means he will give him another task. Fan Tan saw a notification about the completed task with an inventory expansion, for which he received an inventory expansion and 1,350 experience points. Fang Tan's level immediately increased to the 8th level and there was very little left to reach the coveted 10. The guy asked Khan where he could get good weapons in this world. The store owner turned to Fang Tan with interest and said that he could give him one weapon, but there was a condition. The guy must perform a somewhat difficult task for the man and will receive the blade that Khan stuck in his shop. Fong Tang's hands immediately reached out to the new weapon and he began to examine it more closely. Fan Tan said that this is a good dagger and he will take it. Then the guy asked what task he should complete. The man said that he just needed to deliver the letter, which surprised Fong Tan. The task said that you need to deliver a letter to a forest hut. The reward for completing it is 2,000 points. Fan Tan asked again, will he definitely receive 2,000 experience points for simply delivering a letter? The task also said that after completing it, Fong Tan would reach the 10th level and he set off without hesitation. The old man wished the newcomer a pleasant journey and waved his hand in the back. Meanwhile, in the mountains the sounds of a powerful fight with some huge beast were heard. It was Jianbing and Tang Jian. They were fighting with a huge bear tied up. Jianbin, fighting off the clubfoot's attacks, found time to talk and asked if Fong Tan was really a newbie and if the girl told him about the legendary task. Tang Jian also fought the bear and asked Jianbing what legendary task he was talking about. Jianbing was surprised that Tang Jian didn't know about the legendary beginner's mission. He explained that none of the new players could complete this mission. The mysterious hunter Jane, whose attacks are incredibly strong, you won't even get close to him, and after failing the task, you will be banned from entering the game for 3 whole days. This task is only for beginners and it disappears after changing profession, which is why no one ever completed it. Tang Jian said that experienced players wrote on the forum that the chance of getting this task is 1 in 1,000, if not even less. The bear became even more furious after Jianbing and Tang Jian's attacks and began to growl loudly. This was the death of the monster and he fell with his body to the floor, defeated and with rolling eyes. Jianbing stood up to the prey and said that the task is not so simple, that's why he's talking about it. Tang Jian thought about her friend's words and realized that this Fong Tan shouldn't be such a loser as to stumble upon him. Fan Tan, meanwhile, found a hut in the forest and was already heading towards it along the path. The guy tried to reach the owner of the hut through the door, but no one answered him. Fong Tan did not hear any answer and decided to find ways to enter there himself. Curious and interested in finishing the task quickly, the guy opened the door. But to our great surprise, Fong Tan's eyes could not see the person there. Instead of meeting the addressee of the letter, he saw an arrow flying into his eye at great speed. The arrow flew with great speed straight into the eye of Fong Tang, who opened the door a little. Fong Tang's reaction allowed him to dodge the fired arrow and not end his game right now. Fong Tan understood that a fight would now await him and was already preparing to meet face to face with his opponent. After a successful rescue, the guy took a fighting stance in front of the door to the house. Fong Tan looked at his health stats and saw that this arrow had caused quite a bit of damage to him just by hitting him. Fan Tan asked the archer in the hut who he was and why he was attacking the guy with the letter. Meanwhile, the leather boots had already left the house and were walking on the ground towards Fong Tang. The archer asked Fong Tang to open the letter and read what was inside to answer all his questions. The frightened Fong Tan opened the letter, but the archer paused so that he could read everything. The letter from Khan indicated that this was the very person to whom the letter should be delivered. Jane was already loading new arrows and said that he would now check who Khan had sent him this time. Fong Tan carefully reread the task, which said everything the same, only there was an addition that stated that it was necessary to defeat Jane. Surprised, Fong Tan asked about the additional task, realizing that he had been duped with a simple mission. Meanwhile, Jane's hands lowered the bowstring and the arrows headed back towards Fong Tang. The arrows flew at the half-sitting Fong Tang, who understood that a direct hit would be fatal for him. Fan Tan decided to duck from the arrows so that they would fly over him and not even hit him. All 3 arrows flew past the guy's body and Fong Tan remained unharmed, but this was not the end. Another attack from Jane, from which Fong Tan dodged as best he could so as not to die. Fan Tan realized that the archer's attacks were very dangerous and any stray arrow could be his last. But Fong Tan also decided that if he died in this game, he would not lose anything, which meant it was worth a try. Fong Tan ran straight towards John's forehead at high speed, like a killer. Jane called such a trick from his opponent interesting, because he himself had not seen such a thing for a long time. The archer loaded another arrow, which was more powerful than all the others and should kill the guy. A notification appeared in front of Fong Tang's face stating that he had entered the affected area and his agility was now reduced by 35%. Jane took his fingers off the bow and sent an explosion arrow at Fong Tan to quickly deal with the guy. Since Fong Tang's agility was reduced, he was no longer as fast and agile. But still, the guy tried to escape and he tried to jump to the side with his feet. Despite the guy's weak body, he was still able to dodge and the arrow did not hit his body. The explosive arrow flew away behind Fong Tan, but the guy still remained alive and continued to fight. The arrow exploded behind Fong Tang, which showed all its strength and the fact that such a projectile was enough to kill a newcomer. Fong Tan realized that if the archer used this attack again, it would be difficult for him to avoid with reduced agility. Fan Tan realized that he would not be able to defeat the archer and the best solution now would be to escape from here. John was amazed by the guy's skills. Usually beginners can't even pass through doors, but here Fong Tan dodged an explosive arrow. The archer said that this time the old tailor sent a good candidate, and the hunter also proposed a truce. The hunter threw a green potion into the guy's hands and asked him to catch the bottle. In the description of the potion it was written that it immediately restores 500 health points after use, but its taste is unpleasant, so it can be drunk once every 120 minutes. The archer ordered Fong Tang to follow him and how the old man called him an adventurer. The hunter took the guy into the hut and said that his name was Jane and he needed the guy's help, and these arrows were just a test. Fong Tan looked at the capable archer and asked how exactly he could help him. Jane removed the hood from his head, where his pointed ears were hidden, and said that he was a half-elf. Jane's grandfather's notes mentioned a mysterious passage in a mine that was located in the forest near the city. According to the archer's research, there are probably about 7 necromancers there. There is also a secret research laboratory of Raphael, one of the necromancers. Fan Tan remembered this name, he had heard it before in Yodling, a couple of years ago. They say that Raphael was a great wizard, but at one point for some reason she became a necromancer. Now the former sorceress is a necromancer who holds the dead captive and has become a sinister figure in society. Fong Tan said that with such strength as an archer, he himself could enter there without any problems. Fong Tan asked the archer why he needed the help of an ordinary beginner if he had such strength. The archer said that the White Wolf, an elite boss of the 10th level, always guards the entrance and does not leave there. The archer wants the newcomer to attract his attention and hold off the wolf while Jane himself attacks him from behind and kills him. Fong Tan was not going to help for nothing and asked what he would get if he helped the archer with this task. Jane replied that if this really was a secret laboratory, then they would definitely find something there, and if he was lucky, the guy could even find a magic book and learn special skills. The archer asked Fong Tan if he was now interested in this matter and did he want to help. Fong Tan thought about the fact that he could gain a skill from the legendary necromancer, it would definitely be worth it. But the guy decided to ask, what if there is nothing in this cave that he needs? Jane replied that even if this happened, he could become the archer's friend, and he could do one thing for him within his capabilities. The archer also said that this task is only available to players below level 10, so Fong Tan cannot reach level 10 until he completes the task. Fong Tan decided that this was a great deal and without hesitation agreed to help the archer. A notification about a new task opened in front of the guy. It said that Khan instructed the guy to explore an abandoned mine. The new task required killing a white wolf and entering the necromancer's cave. The difficulty of the task was level S. At night, a pair of archer and assassin moved to the mine and there really was a white wolf guarding the entrance. The wolf did not look so scary, because at that time he was sleeping, but as soon as he heard someone nearby, he would wake up. Fong Tan said that there is something wrong with this white moon wolf's breath, even though it is an elite level boss. Jane said that he waited here for 20 years and the white wolf became stronger and stronger every day. Perhaps the wolf guard has mutated a bit over the years due to the influence of necromancers in the mine. Fan Tan thought that, in principle, the difficulty of the task is associated with the reward, which means it is worth it. Previously, in fantasy, Fong Tan took difficulty B, and difficulty A was generally rare, but here it is S-class, which means that the reward is very valuable. No wonder Khan waited so long and selected the best rookies through an archer to complete this task. If there is something in the mine that can cause mutations in the white wolf, then at least the pair will not go home empty-handed. Jane repeated their plan. He recalled that the white wolf can use the lust for killing. Fong Tan must provoke him, and while the guy distracts the animal, the hunter attacks him. Fong Tan said that he did not have any special skills and would not be able to hold off the white moon wolf for long. Dane was already aiming his bow and swore to Fan Tan that he would kill the White Moon Wolf and he and the guy would enter the necromancer's cave. The arrow flew straight at the sleeping wolf, who was guarding the necromancer's mine. The White Moon Wolf heard the noise of the uninvited guests and tried to attack him, so he opened his eyes. The arrow flew right next to the face of the predator, whose eyes were bloodshot. The White Moon Wolf realized that he would have to get up to drive Fong Tan and Jane away from here. The animal stood up fully on all fours and, waking up, assessed where its opponents were. The White Moon Wolf began to howl at the top of his lungs throughout the forest, attracting attention to himself. Jane said that the guard called the timber wolves to help him. They need to finish him off as quickly as possible. The timber wolves were not as scary as the one guarding the mine. They were level 5. Fong Tan ran to fight the level 5 timber wolves, and Jane assured him that he would cover him. Fan Tan ran towards the predators with his new blade in his hands to neutralize them. Fong Tan managed to hit one of the wolves in the throat and knock him down. One of the timber wolves fell to the ground after a powerful blow from the rookie killer. But another wolf decided to take advantage of this opportunity and attacked the open guy. The second wolf managed to bite Fong Tan on the shoulder, knocking off 54 health points and slowing his speed by 70%. But then Jane's arrow stepped in to help, throwing the wolf as far as possible from the guy. The White Moon Wolf had not yet entered the fight, but stood on the high ground and watched. The guard saw how 2 wolves were defeated, which means the 5th level monsters will not help him. The boss of the wolves decided that he should deal with the uninvited guests himself and he jumped down from the entrance. From the White Wolf's jump, the earth shook and cracks were visible under his feet, like ice. Fong Tan looked at the huge wolf and appreciated its destructive power that had to be defeated. A strange feeling came to Fong Tan, which warned him of something. The guy realized that the wolf's thirst for murder had activated, which means that he was becoming stronger. The wolf looked intimidatingly at the guy, whom the game warned that he was in the affected area, which means his agility was reduced by 35%. Fong Tan suffered from the fact that the lust for killing reduced his agility and took away his health points every time. He would not last that long. Fong Tan took out his blade in order to distract the wolf and take his attention on himself, on Jane's instructions. Now Fong Tan dreamed of only one thing, that this would end as quickly as possible. Fong Tan stood in front of the huge wolf with one blade in his hands, expecting some action from him. The sudden movement of the wolf made the guy admit that he was much faster than all the forest monsters. In an instant, the wolf was already in the back of Fong Tan, who did not even have time to turn around due to his reduced agility. The paw of the huge beast had already swung over the head of Fong Tan, who was already losing health. The White Moon Wolf took an even larger swing in order to accurately deal with the guy. The wolf tried to grab Fong Tan, but the guy fought hard for his life. Fong Tan fully appreciated the wolf's strength. It was not so easy for him to restrain his paw. With all his might, Fong Tan tried to hold back the paw of the Moon Wolf, who seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. At one point, the guy's hand couldn't stand it and the wolf managed to throw him to the ground. The wolf tried to tear the guy's body, but Fong Tan dodged it in time and saved his life. Then the guy grew bolder and saw that the passage through the wolf's body was open, which meant it was time to strike a counterattack. The guy's foot was already on the predator's claws and Fong Tan was preparing to climb higher and higher. Fong Tan had already reached the head of the predator and was preparing to plunge the blade straight into its eye. Fong Tan managed to hit the predator's head with his blade, but it didn't hit the eye. The wolf felt how they tried to stab him and in a fit of rage threw the offender off his face. The white wolf tried to bite through Fong Tan's body and succeeded. He grabbed the guy with his teeth. Fong Tan's health indicators dropped greatly after the wolf's bite. The predator was truly strong. The guy fell straight from the mouth of the terrible animal to the ground, where he remained lying. Fong Tan hit his head while landing and bounced into the nearby rocks. Fong Tan suffered a crushing attack from the moon white wolf. He would continue to receive damage and his movement speed would be slowed down by 70%. Fong Tan lay exhausted and hoped that Jane would find a way to quickly kill the white wolf. Fong Tan realized that Jane needed to distract the huge predator so that he could take better aim. With the last of his strength, the guy tried to get himself back on his feet and go back to fight the wolf. Fong Tan grabbed his blade and relied on his past skills that he had acquired in the gaming world. But the huge wolf did not take long to wait and decided to attack the exhausted Fan Tang. The guy had fear in his eyes, but until the last he believed that Jane could kill this monster. The wolf opened its mouth and was preparing to swallow the guy alive or crush him with its powerful teeth. Fong Tan himself pulled the knife forward to defend and retaliate, but he still hoped for Jane to save him. And then, out of nowhere, an arrow shot by Jane flies straight into the wolf's skin, killing the animal. Fong Tan received an achievement for killing a white wolf, but there was one thing: Jane's arrow hit him too. Fong Tan realized that the plan worked, only that he received 6,000 damage from Jane and died himself. Jane stood proudly against the backdrop of the full moon, happy that he had finally managed to kill the cave guard. Fan Tan moved to the lobby, where they wrote to him that he would not be able to enter the game for 72 hours, and would also lose 10% of his total experience. Fong Tan never thought that he would be given a 3-day ban, but that's probably why this is an S-class task, because it's not so easy to complete. Only now the guy fears that defeating the wolf is only the first step into the mine. The most important thing is that Jane is waiting for him in 3 days in a hut in the forest, as promised. Fong Tan decided to leave the game and looked at his statistics. In total, he spent 4 hours and 23 minutes in the game world today. In the real world, the guy would start taking off his special gaming helmet to exit the menu. Now Fong Tan returned to the real world completely and he tried to turn off the helmet of the game world. Fan Tan left his room and walked out of his room, scratching his head into the hotel. Tang Jian accompanied her father on a business trip and asked him to be careful and come back early. Fong Tan asked Tang Jian if Uncle Tang Ren had left. Tang Jian slammed the door and explained that her father had work to do and would be gone for a while. Fong Tan immediately realized that if Tang Ren was having problems at work, it was all because of Uncle Hubbard's affairs. Tang Jian saw the guy's dissatisfied look and, jumping on him, asked him not to worry and said that he would go to school with her tomorrow. Fong Tan apparently was not happy with this news, because he angrily asked where they would go. And now the new friends, together and amicably, go to a new school for Fan Tan, where Tang Jian studies. The lessons are attended by students who are engrossed in learning and cannot tear themselves away from their books. The teacher took Fan Tan's hand and introduced him to all the students in the class, and she also wished the new student success in his studies. Fong Tan felt awkward and, looking at the floor, quietly introduced himself in front of the whole class. Jianbin recognized the guy and even jumped up joyfully from under his desk to greet him. The teacher did not appreciate this action and reprimanded the guy, after which she asked him to sit back at the table. There was an empty desk behind Jianbing and the teacher pointed to it, inviting the new student to sit there. The girls immediately began discussing the guy's appearance. One thought he was cute and handsome, while the other thought he was too indifferent. The teacher adjusted her glasses and announced that the class was having a self-study lesson. Jianbing watched for the teacher to leave the office to turn to the new student. Jianbing said that he knew that Fong Tan had started playing fantasy and was undergoing training, so he offered his help. Fan Tan thanked the guy for this but assured that he likes to raise the levels himself, especially since he was blocked for 3 whole days. Fan Tan looked at the textbooks and did not understand how alchemy could be taught in schools. Jianbing asked if it was a case of a guy on a mission in a hut to find an archer. Fan Tan asked the guy how he knew this. Did he really also go through this back when he was a beginner? Jianbin replied that he had not been there, but had heard a lot about it. Then the guy asked if the newcomer managed to beat the archer. Fong Tan said that the archer was too strong and at his level it was impossible to kill him, but Jane offered him a truce. His attacks were just a test. Xianbing was surprised that the newcomer could not kill the archer. He wondered how exactly this all happened. Fan Tan said that after a fight with an archer, they went to the necromancer mine, where the guy died along with the moon white wolf. Jianbing was surprised to hear this. He jumped up from his desk again and called Fong Tang a great master. Jianbing told the guy that he managed to complete the legendary task for beginners, the rarest in the game. Jianbing reiterated that Fong Tang managed to complete the legendary and rarest quest in the beginner stage. Players say that over the past 20 years, only a few people were able to receive this task and each of them was killed by an archer. Jianbing said that he did not expect this from Fong Tang, and the guy replied that killing a huge wolf is only the first step and he still needs to do a lot of things. Jianbing said that this is a very difficult task. If the first step was so difficult, then it should only get worse. Jianbin asked about the reward for this task. It should be very valuable. Fong Tan pushed the guy away and said that he didn't know yet, he still needed to wait 3 days to find out what would happen next. Jianbing fell to his knees and began to beg Fong Tang to take him as his student, but the guy refused. Jianbing asked why the master did not want to take him on, and Fong Tan replied that his demands were too high. The bell rang at school, which meant that the lesson was over and everyone could leave. Tang Jian watched as Jianbing, clutching his leg, begged Fong Tang to become his teacher. The girl told Jianbing that his screams and squeals could be heard all the way in the corridor and asked him to be quieter. Tang Jian told Fong Tang that the next lesson was social activities and if he had not yet signed up for the club, then she could teach him and show him what was around. Jianbing called the guy a great master and said that he should only choose the video game club. Surprised, Fong Tan asked what a video game club is and what needs to be done there. Tang Jian explained that the club is a society organized by the school to enrich interests. They have many clubs, such as literature, reasoning, and so on. Jianbing insisted that Fantasia is now the most popular video game of all time, even the government holds national school tournaments to train potential players. And their school's video game club has become the most popular club in the school, #1 among all others, Jianbing claimed. Fan Tan remembered that Uncle Hubbard wrote the same thing in his report, which the guy reread. Fong Tan stood up from his desk and invited his friends to look at the video game club in this case. And now the 3 friends were already standing at the entrance to the Video Game Society Club. The place looked ordinary. There was a huge sign at the entrance to the Social Video Game Club that said it was now closed. Jianbing looked at the sign and realized that the club was closed again, which means Fan Tan would not be able to sign up there. Tang Jian explained that thousands of students register for the video game club every year, so sometimes it is closed, and the girl also suggested going to another place. The friends were observed by Lu He and some schoolgirl who was looking at the screen of her phone. Lu He called the girl vice president and said that in the middle is Fong Tan, and next to him is Tang Jian, both of them are in physics class. The vice president asked if Lu He was confident that Fong Tan was using free mode. Lu He answered without a doubt that this was true, because the movements that the guy was doing could not be done without free mode. The girl was interested in the guy and she went out to look at him and evaluate his appearance. The vice president's name was Qin Yin, and she said that it was very strange, because the guy appeared out of nowhere. Qin Yin told Lu He that she knew that the guy thought Tang Jian was a strong player. Lu He replied that compared to the average person, she is truly a master, but she lacks training, so she needs to practice. Qin Yin entrusted Lu He with the responsibility of recruiting staff for the video game club while she left. Before leaving, the girl said that she would watch Fong Tan to find out more about the guy. Tang Jian and Fong Tan had already returned home after the guy's first day at school. The girl remembered the guy's task and asked if Fong Tan was in the newcomer village yesterday. Fan Tan replied that he was not, he played a little on his own and died in the forest. Tang Jian was surprised how the guy could die, so she asked him about it, because when she left he was already level 7. Fong Tan replied that he carried out the task and died. The guy himself was embarrassed to talk about his failure. Tang Jian said that she herself only received the task yesterday, so she would not be able to help the guy for 2 days and asked him to cope on his own. Fan Tan said that it was okay, and the girl suggested that he go to the game forum to learn a lot of new and useful information. Fan Tan said that he understood and would definitely do this today to level up his character. Fong Tan put on his gaming helmet to check how long his blocking would last. The guy must be blocked after 47 hours, 58 minutes. Fong Tan wondered why he shouldn't take a look at that forum Tang Jian was talking about while he couldn't enter the game world. The guy told the system that he wanted to enter the forum and was asked to accept the instructions that were being downloaded. The guy accepted all the instructions and began to load and enter the forum itself about the world of fantasy. Fan Tan was surprised by the huge amount of information that is located on the forum about the game. A huge number of notifications and alerts began to arrive on the guy's helmet. Fan Tan read an article about how at the end of the first year of the game a huge bug suddenly appeared. The player entered fantasy and somehow took away all the items in the game world. Originally present in the game, the 30-level boss Scorpio has broken through into the real world. An angry and huge scorpion immediately after its appearance began to destroy the city and destroy everything in its path. The incident quickly sparked panic and concern about virtual reality around the world. Fan Tan continued to enthusiastically watch the news on the forum about the game Fantasy. Following the destruction of Scorpio, the federal government decreed that accessing the game through special means would be illegal and punishable by death. At the same time, the government launched Project Butterfly to select talented players to join the game in order to take action against possible threats in extreme cases. Since the start of Project Butterfly, it is likely that the project will target in-game NPCs. Fong Tan thought that the T-27 commander of the Third Zone, Uncle Tong, could be part of the Butterfly project. The educational video from the forum ended and Fong Tan took the helmet off his head. Fan Tan held the gaming helmet in his hands and tried to think about the information he had received. He himself found it interesting. Fan Tan's days passed like those of all schoolchildren. During school hours, he tried hard in his classes. During recess and physical education lessons, he and Jianbing played basketball on the playground. In the evening the guy returned home and everything was cyclical and did not change over time. That's how 3 days passed from Fong Tan's life. He remembered that Jane promised to wait near the mine. The guy wondered if he had kept his promise. Fan Tan put the helmet on his head and began entering the game world. His blocking had already passed. Fan Tan appeared in the same place, near the mine, where Jane killed him, and the guy was blocked for 3 days. Jane was sitting in the same place. He turned around and looked at Fong Tan and said that his revival takes a very long time. Fong Tan said that Jane didn't just plan for the guy to provoke the wolf, he deliberately targeted the newcomer and attacked him. Jane jumped over to get closer to Fong Tan and said that he was right and had seen through him. Jane said that it takes a lot of time for him to use his, so when the wolf was provoked towards Fong Tan, he did not feel threatened and he seized the moment and hit both. Fong Tan ironically praised John, saying that his plan to kill 2 birds with 1 stone was simply wonderful. Jane took out the wolf Fong from his inventory and gave it to Fong Tan, saying that he did not need it. Fong Tan extended his hand to accept the gift and study it in more detail. The wolf Fong was a rare artifact that is used in alchemy or forging. Jane said that this was all thanks to Fan Tan and invited him to go together to the necromancer mine. Fong Tan said that he is a murderer and his penalty for death is not that big, so he will go first to the cave. Fong Tan was notified that his task had changed and now he needed to explore abandoned mines. The golden scroll flew out of Fong Tan's hands and went further into the mine. The killer's leg got caught in the helmet of the previous guys who were trying to explore the mine. Fong Tan said that looking at the broken equipment, one can assume that there have already been people and even battles here. Next, the newcomer's gaze fell on the local environment, plants and other things that could mean something. Fong Tan saw the strange ones and decided to get closer to them to learn more about them, but he failed due to the low level of the player's assessment. Jane said it is similar to the flower of dead souls, which is an important ingredient for pharmacists. The guys went further along the mine in search of the lairs of Rafaela, who should be in this mine. Jane recognized the images on the wall and stopped his partner, pointing out that this was exactly the place. The green hexagonal star that was on the gate was what caught the archer's attention. A system message notified the guy that he was subject to a strong breath of the undead. A random base characteristic was reduced by 3 points every 3 minutes, and the damage received increased by 30%. Jane looked and felt the effect of the undead breath, after which the archer realized that the mission would be very difficult. Fong Tan said that it seemed that this stone door was mainly built to block the breath of the undead coming from the other side. Jane said that all that was left of the great undead magician Raphael was most likely behind this stone door. Jane said that the necromancer Raphael is also a half-elf and the gods have decreed that those of them who seek power will end up in the arms of the dead. Jane said that he could decipher the spell and understand what was written on the stone. No sooner had the archer touched the huge star than the reaction immediately began. Green smoke leaked from the emblem and filled the entire shaft with a draft. Then the star seemed to catch fire and began to glow stronger and stronger. Fan Tan covered his face with his hand from the light, and the system notified him that they were entering the necromancer's cave. Now they need to open the stone door. Dead hands began to emerge from the ground, glowing green. The skeletons growled as if they were evil zombies. They had already crawled out in full body. Fong Tan examined them and tried to understand how to resist them, but the most important thing was not to let himself be surrounded. The archer and the assassin stood back to back so that the skeletons would not have an advantage, and Jane shouted at the newbie to be careful. Fan Tan decided not to wait for the moment when they were driven into a corner and tried to attack the skeletons himself. With lightning speed, the guy's blade swept through the flock of skeletons, as if he were fighting monsters every day. The guy was able to hit 3 skeletons in one run, but not completely kill them, which gives him more and more chances. Fan Tan asked where the undead skeletons came from and why did this happen now. Fan Tan dealt with another dead man and came to the conclusion that they were just waiting for them here. Meanwhile, Jane continued to decipher the spell, trying to open the door to the cave. The emblem seemed to come to life and threw away the trembling hand of the forest hunter. Jane flew a couple of meters back from the door. An unknown force prevented him from getting closer. The archer tried to raise it and immediately aimed his weapon towards the cave gate. Fang Tan saved the archer by killing the skeleton behind him and asked what the hell was going on here. John explained that this seal was much more powerful than previously expected and would be difficult to break. Based on the situation, the archer guessed that there were third-level dead beings behind the seal, namely evil spirits. Fang Tan remembered the evil spirits and said that simple physical attacks against them are useless. Fang Tan tried to hold back one of the skeletons that attacked him. Fan Tan reminded that they lose stat points, and these undead skeletons are not affected by physical attacks, and this is very bad, because there are no magicians here. Jane threw the powerful undead skeleton away from Fan Tan with his arrow so that he would not suffer. The archer said that things won't work out like that, they first need to leave here and figure out how to open the seal. The archer's powerful arrows kept the skeletons at bay and prevented them from getting close enough to attack. The guys ran down one of the tunnels and Jane said that they could use this exit. Fang Tan noticed that the skeletons did not follow them, which means they are only active near the seal. Jane thought about what they should do, because no one in the port village could open such a complex seal. Fang Tan also kept up with the guy and tried to remember someone who is well versed in the gaming world. Fang Tan came up with a plan and told the archer that he could ask someone about the seal. The guy opened his friends list in the menu and clicked on Tang Jian to ask her for help. Fan Tan sent Tang Jian a photo of the seal and asked what he should do to open it. The girl was surprised by such a powerful seal and suggested looking on the forum. Maybe there are quest hunters who are interested in this, but they will have to pay. Jane looked at Fang Tan and asked how it is. Will they be able to help or will they have to cope on their own? Fan Tan said that this is problematic. His girlfriend also doesn't know what to do, but there is one way that will require a lot of money. Jane thought about the guy's proposal and looked for a way to find a lot of money. Jane pointed to the purple flowers that Fang Tan had found and said that they could help. Fang Tan asked how the dead soul flowers could help them get a lot of money. The archer explained that with the help of these flowers of dead souls you can create potions that influence evil spirits. They are very valuable and they can exchange them for money. But although the archer has the tools, he does not have the skills, so if he tries to pick a flower, this will affect its integrity and quality. Fang Tan said that he had lived in Fantasia for more than 10 years and knew how to collect flowers like this, but he didn't know if it would work here. Fang Tan finally volunteered and said that he could try to collect flowers of dead souls. Jane, without hesitation, said that this was a great idea and handed the guy a tool that looked like a sickle. Fan Tan received the tool in his hands and read the description of the item. With its help you can harvest various crops. The system notified the guy about the activation of secretive gathering abilities. Now his chances of success have increased. Fang Tan began collecting and was able to obtain a whole flower that did not suffer from deterioration in quality. Next came the process of collecting flowers, which took some time from the guys in the mine. Finally, Fang Tan said that they were almost done with collecting the dead soul flowers in this area. Jane said that within 2 days he would perfect a potion that could cope with evil spirits, and about the seal he relied on Fang Tan. Then the archer said goodbye to the guy and left. Fang Tan examined all the flowers that he could collect from the mine in his inventory. Of course, for Fan Tan himself it was surprising that these flowers were in demand and someone could buy them. Meanwhile, the girl broadcast under the nickname Lolu and announced that she was going to bed. The girl turned off her tablet, ending the live broadcast for her viewers. The girl of the video game club herself turned to the chairman and asked what happened this time. The man replied that someone on the forum posted a sale message that attracted a lot of attention. He wants the girl to make a deal with him for 30 million gold coins. Lulu was surprised by such a huge amount and asked what could be worth as much as 30 million. The chairman replied that these are flowers of dead souls. The surprised girl asked the guy again. She didn't think that flowers of dead souls actually exist. There was a break between classes at school and Jianbing was looking at the screen of his tablet with enthusiasm. Jianbing decided to turn to Fang Tang and ask how the guy was doing with his legendary rookie task. Fan Tan replied that he had encountered some problems. There was a seal in the cave that was difficult to open. Tang Jian suggested that the guy ask for help on the forum. Now he was waiting for an answer. Jianbing handed the guy his tablet and asked, "Why don't he take a look at the fantasy forum right now?" Fan Tan took the tablet in his hands and was surprised that there was even such a convenient device, and in order to enter the forum it was not necessary to wear a gaming helmet. Under the post where there was a photograph of the seal, there were a couple of comments that wrote that this seal was impossible to decipher. His friend Jianbin told the annoyed Fan Tan that apparently no one had answered anything sensible. Next, the guy decided to check his other ad about selling flowers of dead souls. Fan Tan asked Jianbing why there were so many replies on this topic where the guy was selling flowers of dead souls. Jianbin said that this post is now very popular throughout the forum and apparently its owner will become very rich. But then a certain realization came to Jianbin whose post this could be if Fang Tan was so interested in him. Jianbing stood on Fang Tang's desk and asked if he wrote this forum post. Jianbing hugged his friend and said that the post-selling materials had become incredibly popular, and Fang Tan himself was worthy of being a great master. Despite all the comments, one girl stood out most of all, who offered to contact, but did not name the price, and Jianbin recognized her and said that she was the #1 beauty. It was Shenlolu. Jianbing began to show the guy her photos and talk about her beauty, eyelashes, eyes, face, and so on. She also had a badge indicating that she was a certified forum user, and Fang Tan decided to ask Jianbing for help to get the girl's contacts. Jianbing replied that he considered Lolu a goddess and would definitely help Fang Tan make a deal with her. After the school day, Tang Jian and Fang Tan met in front of the school entrance to go home together. After some time, the teenagers reached their home, where they planned to spend a lot of time in Fantasia. Tang Jiang said that her friends were waiting for her and she would immediately sit down to play, so Fang Tan could count on her. The girl also asked Fang Tang to bring apple juice to her room when he dumped all his things. Fang Tan was not as enthusiastic and did not do everything as quickly as the girl. While Tang Jiang was already wearing her helmet and playing fantasy with her friends, Fang Tan had just entered her room. The guy put a glass of apple juice next to the girl's alarm clock, and then sat down opposite her. Fang Tan, sitting opposite, also put on his helmet and said that Tang Jian has a task today, in which case he should go to the forum. While the teenagers are playing, the action moves to another apartment where Lolu lives. Shenlolu was lying on the sofa sleeping while her sister was scrolling through the forum on her tablet. The girl asked Lolu why she thought that the dead soul flowers were really worth 30 million, especially since the technical department said that this guy was playing recently. Could it be a hoax? Lolu began to slowly wake up and explained to her sister that so far not a single guild has taken the 60th level of dead souls. This is the key to passing and it is worth it. The technical department also reported that the flowers of dead souls in the screenshot are of very high quality and the integrity of none of them is lower than 70%, which indicates that the person who collected them has high collection skills. And based on all this, this announcement cannot be a hoax, and the player is honest and not a fraudster, Lolu said and closed her eyes again. The girl showed her sister the notification on her tablet and said that this guy had sent her a friend request. Shenlolu was excited. She said that she had been waiting all night for this moment for that guy to send her a friend request. Fang Tan wrote directly and asked how much the guild was willing to pay. Lula's sister said that this guy with such a beauty immediately started talking about payment, then the girl called him stereotyped. Lula said that the sister's words were nonsense, because the president had observed this guy's collecting ability and he was incredible. The girls wrote that they would also help the guy with the seal, and Fang Tan stood at the market in the newcomer village and thought about how they could offer cooperation and money at the same time. The girls said that they would open the seal for free, and they would pay 15 million for the flowers. Fan Tang was bothered by this amount, because in the real world, one gold coin was equal to $10,000, and for all 10 years in the game he managed to earn about 30 silver coins. Such huge sums, which the guy could never even see, interested him greatly. Sister Lolu was outraged that the guy did not answer them, and her sister reduced the amount that the chairman had named by as much as half. Lolu asked not to panic, because 15 million is still not so little. Besides, not everyone can work with the Star Guild. Fan Tan stood leaning against the wall and considered the girl's proposal from all possible angles. Fan Tan remembered the enthusiastic Jianbing, who idolized Lolu and decided to make a deal with the guild after all, because the offer was not bad. Fan Tan stood at the meeting place and Lolu came to life, promising to appear here soon. At the place of rebirth, the silhouette of a girl began to appear and Fan Tan realized that it was Lolu who had come to him. The girl looked gorgeous in her playsuit, just like Jianbing said. The girl's shoes saw a nearby guy and immediately walked towards him with a neat and quiet step. Lolu winked at the guy and asked in a flirting voice if he was Fong Tan, with whom she had been chatting on the forum. Fong Tan did not show any signs of attention, but simply confirmed that he was Fong Tan and it was the girl who corresponded with him on the forum. Lolu began to look at the information about the player. This is a mysterious guy with advanced collection skills, a 10th level newcomer. His ID is the same as it was yesterday when he wrote to her. The girl said hello and introduced herself. She said that she brought money, as they agreed in the deal. Shen Lolu extended her hand to the guy and reminded him that they had corresponded yesterday, after which she offered to start a deal. Lolu was surprised that her fan did not extend his hand to her in return, because yesterday he clearly made it clear that he knew the girl. Yesterday, in his correspondence, Fan Tan added one more request. He asked for a photo of Lolu with her autograph. An awkward pause hung over the guys and Lolu suggested that the guy was using the appearance of a newcomer as a cover. Shen Lolu did not talk for long, but suggested that they immediately move on to their deal. Fan Tan and Lolu agreed to the exchange. Each party has already confirmed it and all that remains is to click on the exchange button. Fong Tan was warned by the system that he had received a lot of gold coins and now, because of this, he would begin to attract attention from other players. Next, a magic scroll appeared in the guy's hand and Fan Tan asked Lolu how it worked. The girl explained that the guy just needs to apply it next to the seal and it will open on its own. Shen Lolu thought that in order to collect flowers of dead souls, this guy must not be so simple. Maybe she can convince him to join their guild. Shen Lolu continued her flirtation and said that she was very happy to cooperate, after which she offered to show her guild. Fan Tan was amazed by the girl's reaction and desire to communicate with him. He even became wary. The guy remembered the words of Uncle Hubbard, who warned that women are dangerous creatures and you need to be careful with them. Fong Tan turned around and said that he had an urgent task now, so the girl could show the guild another time. Disappointed, Lolu reminded the guy about the autographed photo he had asked for in correspondence. Fan Tan did not turn around, but simply said that his classmate really liked her. He would later send his address and the girl could send her photo there. Lula was infuriated by such indifference to herself. She asked about her classmate with anger in her eyes, but she never received an answer. Lolu started freaking out because she was a famous person all over the internet, and this guy just said a few words and quickly ran away somewhere. Shen Lolu decided that she had to see what this newcomer was capable of and whether he was as good as they said he was. At the entrance to the cave, Jane was already standing, who had been waiting for Fong Tan for a long time. The archer gave the guy 2 potions and said that he had been working on them for several days. They need to be used on their weapons and then they will be able to kill the undead. Fan Tan received the potions and the system wrote him all the information. As Jane said, they need to be used on weapons. Jane also sensed that someone was following Fong Tan and told him about the tale. Then the archer suggested getting rid of the girl. It was Lolu who tagged along with the guy. Fong Tan asked not to do anything, because this girl has been helping them from the very beginning, but the guy doesn't know what she's up to. Jane warned Fong Tan that if she interfered with the task, he would deal with her very quickly. Lolu recognized Jane, the legendary NPC from the task for beginners. The girl herself was trying to understand how Fong Tan managed to win the trust of the archer hunter. Lolu also realized that the flowers of dead souls and the seal must be the key to John's mission, which means she must go and check it out. Fong Tan used magic potions on his blade, after which the team headed towards the seal. On the way, the killers easily dealt with the undead skeletons, as if they were very weak monsters. Jane said that his potion actually works on the undead, because these skeletons no longer revive. The corpses of the skeletons really could no longer be reborn and lay at the feet of the killer and the archer, defeated and completely dead. And then both of their eyes fell on the signet that closed the gate to the necromancer's cave. Jane said that since they dealt with the skeletons, now they need to open this seal. Fong Tan threw the scroll to open the seal and the couple froze in anticipation. The scroll refused to work. The message said that using an unknown scroll required 2,000 mana. Fong Tang did not have enough mana points. Jane asked the guy what was wrong with this scroll and what didn't work, and the guy replied that he didn't have enough mana. Then the guys remembered Lula and turned around. Jane suggested asking her, because she is a magician. Fong Tan said that he knew that Shen Lolu was hiding behind the wall behind him and asked her to come out. Lolu thought that Fong Tan was a newcomer. He was only level 10, he was most likely lying and did not notice her. But the girl's doubts were dispelled by Jane's explosive arrow, which hit very close to the girl's legs. The archer said that if the girl did not come out to them immediately, the next arrow would kill her. Despite the archer's threats, Lolu still remained behind the wall and did not go out anywhere. Fan Ten asked the girl to finally come out, because they urgently needed her help. The girl's hand peeked out from behind the wall and she realized that she had definitely been discovered, and Fong Tan was not bluffing. Shen Lolu felt a little awkward and asked Fong Tang when exactly did he discover her. Jane said that they both knew from the very beginning of the hike that she was watching them, they just didn't touch her. Lula asked why she wasn't discovered earlier. If the guys knew that she was following them, did they really want to see what the girl was up to? Fong Tan said that they had no intention of harming the girl, because she seemed good to them. Lula was fired up by the idea that Fong Tan is not so cold towards her and does not think that she is bad. Jane and Fong Tan whispered and told each other that if something happened they should take care of the girl. Fong Tan held the scroll in his hands and asked Lolu why she didn't warn him about the amount of mana the scroll required. The girl said that all magic scrolls require a lot of mana and a player like Fong Tan should have known this himself. Lolu said that if she is not considered a bad girl, then she will try to help the guys. Lolu raised the scroll above the seal and placed her hand on it, as if casting a spell. This time the girl had enough mana and the whole process worked. The scroll remained in the air. The seal was deciphered and the gate began to open, flooding everything around with green light. Lolu warned the guys that the seal had been removed and asked them to be careful and keep their eyes open. The gate opened with the characteristic green smoke that was there the first time Jane and Fong Tan came here. Fong Tan began to walk ahead of everyone and asked his friends to follow him, but he had to do everything carefully. A message appeared in front of the guy, which said that he was under the influence of holy light, blessings, and his physical strength had increased. Fan Ten asked Lolu if she was a priest for an hour, suspecting that these effects were her doing. Lolu replied that she is the strongest priest of light and darkness and can do many things in this world. Jane said that it was time to go inside and ordered everyone to start. The first thing the guys encountered on their way was an ordinary-looking corridor with strange walls. But this corridor was unusual. Terrible spirits began to crawl out of the walls. There were more and more spirits, and they themselves looked very frightening even for such a place. Lolu recognized the monsters and said that physical attacks simply don't work on these spirits at all. But Jane decided not to listen to the girl's words and began to test the strength of the spirits with his bow. Fong Tan also had a great desire to fight the spirits, because his blade was still under the influence of the potion. With a quick movement and one attack, Fan Tan was able to kill 4 spirits at once with his blade. Lula was amazed by the guy's skills. She saw how he killed 4 spirits with one attack and realized that Fong Tan was playing in free mode. Fan Tan smelled some strange smell and asked his comrades if they smelled something strange. Lolu did not understand what they were talking about and said that she did not smell anything. Jane said that it was the smell of decay, most likely it was some kind of high-level monster, which meant they needed to be careful. A huge pig appeared in front of the guys along the corridor, which had ears like a troll and human hands like the Hulk. In the hands of the huge monster was a large cleaver that barely fit into his hefty hand. At first, the guys were unable to quickly notice the huge monster, but Lolu was the first to see the danger. The huge pig did not have excellent mobility, but still slowly made its way towards the guys. Lolu scanned the monster and learned that he was a level 30 boss, a failed necromantic experiment capable of receiving simple commands from his creator. The huge pig began to growl throughout the corridor and was already preparing to attack the unwanted guests. Fan Tan suggested using the old tactics to defeat the boss. He would distract the monster, and the archer would look for a way to kill him. Jane sent 3 arrows at the huge monster, and Fang Tan ran towards it to make diversionary maneuvers. 3 arrows landed right in the stomach of a huge monster, which slightly damaged it. Fan Tan began to run closer and closer to the huge pig to launch his attack. The guy's leg climbed up the arrows that Jane had previously stuck in the stomach of the dead pig. Fang Tan climbed to the level of the monster's head very quickly and was already preparing to attack. Everything was very fast and dynamic. While the dead man still did not understand what was happening, Fang Tan managed to touch his chest with a knife. Then the guy began to retreat to prepare for the next attack, although Fang Tan himself was more for bait and disorientation of the pig. Pig decided that he, too, should not just stand idle and need to attack the arrogant killer. Fan Tan was approaching in flight, and a huge pig was trying to cut the guy into 2 parts with a cleaver. But the pig didn't succeed. His cleaver, on the contrary, helped the guy jump away from him with his legs. Next, Fan Tan, with all the strength he had, kicked the pig in the chin. Fang Tang was surprisingly good at resisting a huge monster that was 3 times stronger than him in terms of levels. The archer removed his arrows to prepare them, and Lolu watched in admiration as the newcomer fought. Jane said that Fang Tan was only level 10 and would not be able to resist this boss for long, so the archer began to prepare his arrows with a potion. Lolu also decided to help the team and said that she would find a way to catch the pig in a trap. The girl cast a secret capture spell and then fired it from her staff. To the girl's great surprise, her spell didn't work at all and the monster didn't even feel it. Surprised, Lolu tried to understand why her spell did not work on this huge monster. The girl's eyes tensed even more when she realized that her magic would be useless. The girl asked Fang Tan to be careful and warned that this monster was a spirit monster. The huge pig tried to chop Fang Tan with his huge axe, but the guy managed to dodge the attack. Due to the fact that the pig himself was not the most agile and fast, Fang Tan managed to get behind him. The guy managed to wrap his legs around the monster's neck and put his blade to its throat. Fang Tan tried to attack the monster, but his blade could not penetrate the thick skin of the boss. The pig himself was already preparing to throw the guy off his neck and crush him like a little ant. Fang Tan heard the archer say that it was too late and the pig's time was up. John pulled the string on his bow with a powerful arrow and commanded Fang Tang to jump off the monster. Fang Tan jumped away from the monster's head, and a powerful arrow hit him right in the bull's eye. The monster's body crumbled. He was left with a huge hole in his head from the arrow and his arms crumbled. Jane could barely breathe after the shot and, dropping his eyes to the floor, began to restore his breathing. Fan Tan saw that Jane was not feeling well and asked his friend if he was okay. The archer replied that nothing bad had happened, he was just overtired and needed time to rest. Lolu wondered what kind of mission this was, not to mention the monsters, it was too difficult for beginners. Fang Tan stood in front of what was left of the huge monster, hoping to find something useful. Among all this, Fang Tan was able to find a rotten patchwork cloak, which provided additional protection, health and many other useful things for this world. The guy also found rotten keys among the whole pile, which will be useful in the future. Lolu approached the guy and said that there was a chance to find the soul of the dead boss. The girl saw the cloak in Fang Tan's hands and said that it was indeed a soul equipment. But Lol herself didn't like them. She said that the attributes were too weak and they weren't worth it. The guy said that this equipment is suitable for him, at least it adds health, strength and increases damage by 20%. Next, Fang Tan asked what the girl meant by boss soul and soul equipment. Lolu asked in surprise how the guy could not know this, but the girl herself thought that he understood this game. Fan Tan replied that he didn't know anything about it, and the girl realized that he was not an expert who was going through the game again, because in that case he would have known about the equipment of souls. Lolu assessed the skills of this schoolboy and decided that he should take the gifted guy into his guild. With training, he would definitely become a strong player. Lolu explained that the boss soul is a kind of monster in the game, and this monster is completely immune to skills. Lolu decided to explain with an example. Magical skills cannot harm spiritual monsters at all. All spells consume spirits, as well as additions to skills have no effect, but normal attacks do. So for a mage, these monsters are very difficult to deal with, but there may be additional penalties if killed. The girl also whispered to the guy that this archer could also be the boss of the spirits. Lolu explained that as for the soul equipment, it's just that the name has the word soul in front of it, there are no step restrictions on wearing it, and its attributes are much lower than ordinary equipment, so it is useless. However, there are people who buy such secret equipment. Fong Tan asked the girl, "What about mental skills?" Surprised, Lolu had never heard of soul skills before and asked what it was. The guy asked that if there are no such people, then doesn't it seem strange to the girl? The game is deliberately divided into two types, soul and soulless. The guy believes that soul equipment can have an effect on spirit monsters, and therefore spirit skills should also exist against them. Lolu said that it was quite possible, but the guy was right about one thing, like some equipment effects have an effect on monsters. Fong Tan said all the words that were in his conversation with Lolu regarding the soulful and soulless. The guy also stated that he understood what was happening and the team had finally found the gate. Jane said that most likely this gate leads to the boss, who is the last obstacle. Fong Tan checked one of the keys that was in the body of the defeated pig. The key fit perfectly and the gate opened for Jane's team. Jane went first through the gate and, opening the door wider, he was already crossing the threshold. But Lolu couldn't get through the door, it was as if she had hit glass. The girl hit an invisible shield that was holding her back and Fong Tan decided to figure out what was happening. Jane said he also didn't understand what the problem was and tried to find out the reason why the girl couldn't get through the gate. But Fong Tan also couldn't get through. The system explained to him that he was under the influence of certain seals and he wouldn't be able to get through in that state. John decided to inspect the seal himself to understand why regular players couldn't get into it. The archer said that this was a soul lock seal, a high-level seal that the caster added to the soul mark seal. Usually only the caster could remove it. Lolu remembered that there were such seals in Illusion, in particular to prohibit players from entering, but the girl does not know how to break them. Fong Tan put the words illusion and special entry ban together and said that he probably knows what this thing is. Fong Tan walked up to the archer and whispered something in his ear so that Lolu would not hear. Jane asked if the guy was serious now and he replied that he was serious. The archer told the guy to do as he said, and he would go further into the gate. Immediately after the archer hunter left, the door slammed shut again and Fong Tan and Lolu could no longer see their friend. Lolu asked where the archer ran off to, and the guy replied that the system had just announced the completion of the quest and they could leave. Lolu was angry that she didn't know what the door was. The girl was sure that there was a lot more interesting things there, and it's a complete shame if it all ended like that. Fong Tan said that he wouldn't be able to get inside anyway, so everything should be fine. Lolu said that Fong Tan is very kind and took out some kind of magic scroll. The girl handed it to the guy and said that it was a teleporter and with its help you can quickly return to the city, spending only 10 points. The girl sent a friend request to Fong Tan and added that she wanted to talk about something else. Lolu explained that this place was not suitable for talking and that they should return home, after which she began to teleport. Lolu teleported with the same effect, as if she was re-entering the game. Fong Tan began to examine the scroll and understood that this would be a useful thing for him in the future. And now the day continues in the game city after all the adventures with Jane in the mine. Lolu stood in the center of the city and tried to find the guy. She didn't understand why he wasn't here yet. Maybe he doesn't know how to use scrolls? The girl texted him to find out where he was and discovered that Fong Tan had gone offline. Lolu felt embarrassed because she told the guy that they needed to talk, and he simply went offline. The action is transferred from the game world back to the real one, to Fong Tan's room. Fong Tan was in his room taking off his gaming helmet and thinking that it was already so late and he needed to check if Tang Jian had returned to her room. The guy remembered the soul boss, soul equipment and so on. It seems that the illusion that Lolu spoke about is the same illusion in which the guy has lived for the last 10 years, but is divided into two worlds by blocking souls. During the time that the guy lived in illusion, he did not meet ordinary players such as Tang Jian, Jianbing or Shen Lolu. If this is all true, then the guy uses a slightly different method to enter the game. He should be able to return to the hut. But Fong Tan also remembered Uncle Hubbard's fears, so that no one in this world would know about another way to get into fantasy, and if Tang Jian was not in the room, then it might end badly. But it looks like Tang Jian is still in the game, and Fang Tan can't give up on the S-class mission. He has to try. Fan Tan finally decided to enter the game in his usual way without a helmet. The guy's hands began to assemble a small gate to the game world right in the middle of his room. The portal was completely made and Fang Tan stood in front of it, waiting to enter the game. The integration of Fan Tan's game data and his actual entry into the game began. Fang Tan appeared in the same place where he left the game before entering the mine. The guy's assumptions were correct. These two worlds really interact with each other. Fang Tan noticed that soul equipment can only be used in the game world when you are wearing a helmet, and on the other hand, entering the game in a special way, ordinary equipment loses its effect. Fang Tan immediately ran through the entire mine and returned to the gate where they stopped last time. This time he already managed to get inside and asked Jane if the hunter had found what he was looking for. Jane held a flame in his hands and there were many books and magical signs around him. The archer said that the necromancer Raphaela was a true genius when she modified the formula and used the undead soulfire to transform herself into the first shadow elf. She also left behind these lights, which contain the power of powerful undead and this formula, which can be opened. Having human and elven blood, the archmage left this opportunity to Jaina. The archer held shadowfire in his hands and said that he would follow in the footsteps of the archmage and become the next shadow elf. Jane looked at Fang Tan and held the shadow fire directly on his palms. Then the archer was a little shaken and he fell from his feet to his knees and remained in that position. Fan Tan asked his comrade if he did what he said above in order to become a shadow elf. Disappointed, Jane replied that he had only temporarily swallowed the spiritual fire. Fan Tan began to examine the cave and asked if there was anything else here other than undead fire. The archer said that all the books here are tattered and the guy won't be able to take them with him, but there are some little things that might interest him. The elf pointed to a small box that was hidden in one of the walls of the cave. The cache glowed brightly and Fan Tan, who approached it, asked what it was and why he needed it. The archer replied that this was an excellent reward for the mission. It was the key to the lost city. The data records that the necromancer Raphaela studied the lost sanctuary for a long time. Raphaela originally wanted to use her holy sanctuary power to achieve her goal, but unfortunately, for some reason, she found herself in a difficult situation. She had no choice but to take the risk and use the power of the undead to become the first shadow elf. Raphaela became a real necromancer and this was not the best outcome for her. It was because of Raphaela that all possible wars began between people and elves and trust was completely lost. A clue appeared in front of Fang Tan, which said that he had a key to a bank safe in Ruined City. The number 78 was engraved on the key, which could be used to open and access the contents of the safe. The main task of exploring the mine has been completed, and now the next part of the S-class mission, the key left by the necromancer should push the player to explore. As a reward for the S-rank quest, the guy was given an increase in basic skills. This type of reward surprised him. Fang Tan noticed that the difference between the two worlds did not affect his basic skills. No wonder his basic skills were different from what Tang Jian said the other day. After all, he had raised his skills a little through quests and training. A real earthquake began in the mine. Everything began to tremble and tremble, as if someone was shaking the mine. Jane suggested to Fang Tang to hurry up. This place had been corrupted by the breath of the undead for many years. Everyone had relied on the external seal as a source of energy to control it, but now that the seal had been destroyed, this place would collapse. Jane and Fan Tan ran as hard as they could to avoid dying under the rubble in the mine, and at the last moment they managed to save their lives. The entire mine was under rubble, and John said that the Empire couldn't extinguish the soul flames, so they put a seal on the outside to block the undead's breath, and now that the flames are extinguished, they will send someone to check. The archer said that he needed to find a safe place to complete the shadow transformation, and Fang Tan asked him to be careful. Jane said that Fang Tan was different from the others and the archer added that they would have to see each other when the hunter had time. Jane said that the Empire would want to track the scent of the undead on them, so Fang Tang needed to be careful, after which the hunter jumped into the tree. Jane said that he was looking forward to their next meeting and wished that Fang Tang would become much stronger by then. Fang Tan thought that besides receiving rewards in this mission, that golden key seemed to be an important element for unlocking the next part of the quest. Fan Tan remembered the lost sanctuary and looked forward to new interesting adventures. Already in the real world, Fang Tan was running circles around the house, using this method as a jog. A tired and sweaty guy walked inside through the front door and wiped his forehead with a towel. Tang Jian asked the guy why he got up so early. Was he really going to training? Fang Tan drank water greedily and said that he only ran a couple of laps and it couldn't be called training. Fang Tan received new glasses yesterday, which gave him a big increase in speed and strength. He needs to learn to control his body more accurately. Tang Jian asked the guy if he is free today. But the guy was all in his thoughts about the game world and the girl hit the table with her hand. Tang Jian grabbed the towel around the guy's neck and asked if he could hear her and was even here. Fang Tan responded in confusion that he was just distracted and apologized to Tang Jian for his inattention. Tang Jian calmed down and said that they have a game with the chemistry class today. Can Fang Tan go to the gaming club with them? Fang Tan apologized and said that he couldn't go today. He was going to the main city to complete his profession change. Tang Jian was a little upset and told the guy that in that case, he would be on his own today. Fang Tan returned back to the game world to the same place where he left off, near the entrance to the mines. The guy took the scroll given to Lolu and began his teleportation to the main city of the 7th district. And after a couple of seconds, Fan Tan was already in the center of the permitted city of Ash. This place was already more familiar to Fan Tan, who had been here before during his 10 years in this world. He recognized the monument to the magician Madrina, who, as legends say, saved the destroyed city with her precious life when an army of undead attacked it. The guy went to one of the soldiers so that he could direct him to where Fang Tang needed. The soldiers on guard say that all the teachers are in the northwest corner of the barracks. In the ruined city there stood a strange man who was the mentor of the killers and Fang Tan headed towards him. The strange man fingered the coins in his hands and said that if Fang Tan was looking for a mentor to killers, then it was him. Only if a guy wants to become a killer, should he tell him, as a killer, what is most important to them. Fang Tan answered without hesitation that the most important thing for murderers is a fatal blow. The man became interested and said that no one can guarantee 100% success. What will happen if the guy fails? Fang Tan said that then the main thing is to escape as far as possible from your goal. The man laughed at this version too. He said that it would have looked exciting if he had been chased, killed and run away 1,000 miles. Fang Tan stood in confusion and could not figure out what he was doing wrong and why the mentor was so strange. A menu opened in front of the guy with the possible functions of a mentor and a lot was said there about them. The system congratulated Fan Tan for completing the task and invited him to learn new skills. The guy had 4 abilities to choose from, which had their own advantages and differed in price. Fang Tan could not even imagine that learning skills would be so expensive. It's good that he had time to prepare. Fang Tan decided for himself that he needed to learn all these skills as quickly as possible. The mentor said that the guy seemed to be rich, and he also expressed hopes that Fang Tan could become a cool killer. The system congratulated Fang Tang for learning all the skills available from this mentor. A table with the distribution of skills opened in front of Fang Tan and he decided that everything was too simple, so he asked his mentor when he could teach him real skills that would be useful. The mentor silently and very slowly turned towards Fang Tan. Further, the mentor, like a real killer, was able to get as close as possible to Fang Tang with lightning speed. The mentor asked the guy what he thought the real skill of a killer was. Fang Tan doubted his mentor's skills and decided to test what he was capable of with the help of his blade. The guy quietly swung his weapon and tried to attack the killer's mentor. To his great surprise, Fang Tan simply could not hit his mentor's body, which seemed to slip away from the blows. Then the guy tripped over his own foot and fell behind his mentor, losing his balance. Fang Tan wondered why he tried to attack his mentor if he didn't even move. The mentor called the guy very funny and said that it was not yet time to learn such things, so he invited him to his place when Fang Tan reached the 50th level. And maybe then the mentor will give the guy the opportunity to try. Fang Tan rose to his feet and asked, "What kind of opportunity are we talking about now and what does the mentor mean?" The mentor began to wave his hand and drive the guy away with all his best wishes. Fang Tan noticed that the skills he had just received did not have a soul tag, which meant that like that equipment, the effects would be nullified when entering the game. The soul is most likely the true core of this game, other than equipment. Only by learning soul skills can you truly increase your power. Fong Tan thought that the mentor had hinted that he wanted to personally train the guy, but he did not immediately understand. Fong Tan realized that even if it was a bad mentor, if he studied it now, it could help him in the future. Fan Tan thanked his mentor and assured that he would return to him for help soon. Fong Tan understood that it would be very difficult to raise levels alone, and he needed as much as the 50th, which meant he needed to find the fastest way. Tang Jian told the guy that the fastest way to level up is to find someone who will take you with them, and then complete quests. The guy was wondering what he should do, because Tang Jian is now playing against the chemistry class, Jianbing is also with her, and the guy himself doesn't have many friends. Next, Fan Tan remembered that Shen Lolu added him as a friend and he could ask for help. The girl announced that the Lolu show was about to begin and advised viewers to follow the news. Then the girl unexpectedly received a letter from Fan Tan, which he had just sent. Lolu read who sent it to her. Noticing Fong Tang's name, she thought, what does the guy want from her now? The girl opened the letter and said that if he tried to explain why he suddenly passed out yesterday, then she could think about forgiving him. Fong Tan wrote that he was now on the city portal and asked Lolu to help raise his level. Lolu replied that she didn't have time and was busy. The girl herself wanted to understand what this guy meant. He couldn't be so shy as to hold a grudge, but the chairman ordered the task to be completed. The chairman was telling Lolu that their intelligence portal had analyzed Fong Tang's various indicators and his potential growth value was S, which was a very high rating. The chairman told the girl that he was not interested in how, but Lolu had to drag the guy into their guild. The girl suggested that Fan Tan wait until she finished her show and then she could help him. The guy agreed. Fan Tan decided that while he was waiting for his girlfriend, the best solution would be to get to know the city better. Fan Tan was told that in the tavern you can get any information about everything and everyone, and it is often very useful. There are people in almost every tavern, and as long as they spend money, take on tasks or find out information, they will go there. But everyone must understand that people have only two goals, one of them is to raise the price, and the other is to get information. So when dealing with the assassin guild you should keep your mouth shut. Fan Tan, after a short search, finally entered a local tavern to get to know the city better. The guy sat down at the bar and asked the bartender for a red murder cocktail. The bartender said that Fong Tan's face seemed familiar to him and he had seen him somewhere. Then he asked the guy where he heard this name from. Fan Tan explained that he needed maps of the location of absolutely all the monsters around. The bartender laughed with Fan Tan and said that the guy apparently knows them well if he asks for such a thing. The bartender held out a mug of drink towards Fong Tang, who was sitting across from him and said that he was about to get his hands on some important things. The bartender temptingly said that this amount of information and experience would be enough for the guy to be able to raise himself to a new level. Fong Tan raised his mug and told the bartender that they had agreed on a deal. Fan Tan lost 103 gold coins, and in return received a map of the city's perimeter with designated places with monsters, and the bartender wished him good luck in the battle. Fong Tan also remembered that he needed to find out about the sanctuary and asked if the bartender had any information about this place. The bartender began to scratch his beard and said that the information from the vault was very important and would be expensive. The bartender leaned even closer to Fong Tan's face and his gaze was able to interest the guy. Fan Tan asked the bartender how much information about the sanctuary cost. The bartender replied that basic information about the sanctuary costs only 1 gold coin. Fong Tan thought that this price was too high, because he already knew everything, and the bartender could not tell anything new besides basic information. The guy refused and thanked the bartender for his hospitality, after which he left the tavern. Fong Tan went to the central bank building to search for new information. Almost every city has a central bank, and according to the clue, the key to the bank safe in the ruined city should be right here. Fong Tan remembered that Jane talked about Rafila's research. They were suddenly interrupted and all the data was stored here. What could be written there? Fan Tan did not stand in front of the entrance for long and went inside the bank to find out more information. The employee met the guy and said that their band does not charge commissions for placing deposits and withdrawals from the account, and does not charge any interest. Fong Tan himself was not particularly interested in this and, showing the key, said that he would like to open the safe. The girl adjusted her glasses and apologized to the guy for not immediately recognizing him as a VIP client. The kind employee pointed towards the elevator and invited Fong Tan to follow her. The girl accompanied the guy in the elevator as they climbed to the desired floor. The elevator had already ascended to the 78th floor, the same number was on the key. The employee got out of the elevator and showed the guy his safe, and she also asked him to follow her. Next to the safe there was a table at which a strange man was sitting, as if he was guarding this place. The girl handed the man the key to the bank safe that Fong Tan had given her. The man began to examine the golden key through all possible magnifying glasses. Next, he called the employee over and whispered something in her ear so that Fong Tan would not hear. The girl explained that the guy's safe was only paid for 300 years of rent. Since he is a VIP, they extended the lease for him for another 300 years. To receive the contents under storage, the guy will need to pay a subsequent rent of 1,200 gold coins. Fan Tan was a little surprised at such a sum and asked why 1,200, that's a lot. The employee said that if the guy does not come to pick up the item the day after tomorrow, after 600 years, in accordance with the contract, the item will belong to the bank. Fong Tan said that this is a huge coincidence, because after tomorrow something should happen. Fong Tan remembered Jane's words, who said that the safe was the result of Rafila's research. Could it really cost 1,200? But most likely it will be the archer selling an S-rank quest that enhances hidden skills and talents. Fan Tan asked for help to open the safe, but he still decided that the safe was worth the money. The employee looked at the strange man and said that they would open everything now. The man stood up and put the key into the keyhole of the huge safe. And now the key finally turned, the lock was opened, and this is the result of Fong Tan's long work. The safe began to open slowly and Fong Tan could not assess what was inside. The girl said that all the items from the safe are now his and anyone can take the guy. There is also a red button that should be pressed if Fong Tan needs the help of the staff. Fong Tan had already come to terms with the loss of a huge amount of money and headed straight to the safe. The guy entered the open safe, where pitch darkness reigned and only gold glowed. In front of Fong Tan stood a chest that glowed with golden light on its sides. The guy received a new notification that he had received an ancient chest into his possession. Fong Tan opened the lid of the chest, expecting to see something valuable inside that would be useful to him. There was a necromancer's book in the chest, and the guy saw a message that he had received research data. Fan Tan sat in the lotus position and began to read all the necromancer's research data. 3,000 years ago, ancient times, when many species of creatures, including humans and elves, lived together. Man combined mechanical and alchemical technologies to improve warriors. They were able to create a civilization that was unrivaled. It was an advanced alchemical being, capable of allowing those with high beliefs to retain their own desire even after transformation. Not only did their power increase significantly, as long as they had a supply of energy, they had an endless life. Unfortunately, even such an advanced people, like other races, disappeared from the history of civilization. During her investigation, Rafila discovered that the sanctuary still had knowledge of its people, and she believed that this civilization was not truly extinct, it was simply temporarily sealed in another space. To gain the power of an alchemical puppet to gain eternal life, she even traveled to the far north to find the ruins of a sanctuary. Unfortunately, all this has long turned into a wasteland. After reading the book, Fong Tan seemed to have a strong realization. Fong Tan felt a surge of knowledge and that he had learned new skills. The guy learned elementary alchemy, low-level gargoyle making, and alchemical puppet palm. Fong Tan held his head and thought that 3 skills at one time that were based on this book was quite a lot. Fan Tan began to guess about something. He tried to understand and compare all his skills. Fan Tan realized that this was all very similar to an alchemical puppeteer. Alchemy flourished in the sanctuary, giving rise to a new profession, the alchemist puppeteer, a profession that specialized in fighting through the manipulation of various alchemical puppets. Alchemical puppets are not only immune to various spells, but also have extremely low damage taken from both magic and physical attacks, which makes them practically invulnerable. Even though the stone gargoyle was only a third-rate creature, it could fly and was excellent in dogfights. The guy decided that he should try it immediately. If it was possible to make a gargoyle, the 1,000 gold coins spent on it would be worth it. The guy put the book back in the chest and tried to figure out what to do with it. Fong Tan decided that it would be best to burn the information so that no one else could get to it. The chest with the book inside caught fire and burned to the ground in a matter of seconds. All his achievements for this task appeared in front of the guy. He improved greatly during this time. The small luminous thing from the chest still did not burn, but remained lying in a pile of ash. It was a mysterious fragment of a rune that was supposed to help the guy reach the next stage of the level. The guy examined the alchemical structure and realized that there were not even any hints of the next step, which means he would have to look for everything on his own. Fong Tan asked himself to forget about it. He must first learn the method of creating stone gargoyles. If he can make enough of them, and order them to kill monsters, then the rate of leveling up will increase greatly. Meanwhile, Lolu was ending her show and thanking the viewers for watching. The girl told her fans that they could see each other next time and hung up. Lolu traveled to the game world to help Fong Tang as promised. The girl teleported to the house and headed inside. Inside, she was met by workers who eagerly greeted Lolu. The girl sat down in a chair and decided to write to Fong Tan first to find out where he was. The girl wrote to the guy that she had already freed herself and could help, and Fong Tan said that she could help later, because he now needed many copies for alchemy. The girl thought about what the guy could make from high-quality alchemical runes. He was clearly up to something. Lolu began to ask the guy about what he wanted to do, although at first Fong Tan didn't want to admit it, but then he split and the girl thought, where did he get such skills? Lolu thought that they could buy a skill, or better yet a finished product. Fong Tan said that this stone gargoyle is really expensive. It costs at least 10 gold coins just to make one, but he has already spent 7 or 8. Lolu said that she would pay for the rest, and Fong Tan thought that the chance of a successful outcome was only 30%, so he would have to do a lot of it. Lolu and Fan Tan met near a factory. Fan Tan asked the girl why they were meeting here. The girl replied that players come here to craft items such as potions, forging and runes and can increase their coefficient by 1 to 5%. Fan Tan said that at least there was a price, and he gave the girl all the money he had. Lolu replied that she knew, so she rented the guy a hut for 30 silver. The girl asked Fong Tang where he got this skill, what level it was and whether it could be used again. Fong Tan said that he had learned the skill and there was no way he could exchange it. Lolu was a little upset by the guy's words and turned away from him. Fong Tan looked at the disappointed beauty, but understood that creating a stone puppet should not be binding. Lolu's mood immediately changed and she happily asked if this skill could be exchanged. She later corrected herself, saying that if this stone gargoyle was good, then the guy would have to make one for their guild for free, and Fong Tan replied that if he did not learn to control the puppet, then they would not be able to control the gargoyle. Lolu said that there was nothing wrong with that. She had already seen such skill books. They were not difficult to learn. Then the girl called Fong Tang along with her. But even if Fong Tan fails, it will still improve his crafting skills. The girl opened the door to some dark room and said that this is where they were going. The place looked like the abandoned laboratory of an old alchemist. On the floor everything was already ready for the upcoming event. Fong Tan leaned over the floor and began laying out all the ingredients to create the gargoyle. Lolu stood behind and hoped that this guy would now succeed on the first try. Unfortunately, the first time was not successful. There was a big explosion, which indicated failure. Fong Tan and Lolu covered their noses from the acrid smoke after an unsuccessful attempt. Lolu tried to support the guy and said that this was only the first attempt, but inside she understood that it was her money that was exploding. Fong Tan realized that it was not enough to use just one skill, he needed to channel the flow of energy. Fong Tan placed his fingers on the circle in the direction opposite him. Then he bent even lower to make sure everything worked out. Energy passed through the guy's hands, which meant that he succeeded on the second try. The guy looked at the result of his experiment. This time there was no explosion in the center. Lola carefully asked in a trembling voice, did he really succeed? In the center there was a card, which the guy picked up and looked at. A huge gargoyle was drawn on the card and Fan Tan realized that everything worked out. Lolu asked what happened and Fong Tan replied that they now have an alchemy card. The game, in addition to using skills, has a card element type. As a rule, they have some special effects, for example the function of calling cards. Lolu couldn't be happier. She said that the guy was very lucky and asked him to use the card as quickly as possible. The guy asked how he could summon this card. The notification told the guy that he could try to activate the card. After activation he would be able to control the puppet. If he summons her, then she also belongs to the soul system, and Uncle Hubbard asked not to use Nen in front of others. Fong Tan asked Lolu if she had ever heard of such a thing as Nen. The girl replied that she did not know any Nen and asked to summon the gargoyle as quickly as possible. Fong Tan realized that none of the players could know about Nen, so it was worth using mental energy. A round yellow mark appeared on the guy's head, and his card glowed with light. The appearance of the puppet was accompanied by a strong yellow glow in this place. In the center where the ceremony was held, a gargoyle appeared, which was summoned by Fan Tan. The couple stood nearby and enjoyed the sight of their own puppet. There was a lot of information about the gargoyle, from which it became clear that this is a powerful mob in this game. Lolu immediately carried out her analysis of the gargoyle's abilities. Lolu realized that this was indeed a child who could do some good. One gargoyle was not a very powerful weapon, on par with Fong Tan, but a few level 37 gargoyles could already be powerful weapons. In addition to helping level up, they would also be able to fight in the air, so if Fong Tan created a gargoyle legion, that would definitely be cool. The girl took a photograph of the creature and said that it was necessary to send the photo to the guild as quickly as possible so that the president could analyze the creation of the legion. The girl looked at Fong Tang and called him an untapped gold mine. Fong Tan said that this stone gargoyle does not look strong, but the crafting skill has just moved from the first to the second level and the success rate has increased slightly. The guy suggested finishing with the creation of the rest. Lolu said that she could not even think that the guy had skills in alchemy. Fan Tan said that he did not think that this gargoyle could not be hidden back, because it flies and consumes a lot of energy. One of the soldiers approached Fong Tan and said that he did not expect to see the gargoyle in person, and then asked if it was for sale. Lolu replied that this is a reward for the quest, and the rest is the secret of the guild and she cannot tell passers-by about it. Lolu asked what they should do now and Fong Tan said that he needed to raise the level. He had just accepted a quest to kill almost 10,000 monsters. Lolu said that we need to find a good place to level up. Killing level 10 monsters will not give any experience, the guy's attack power is too low, and the penalty is too big to take risks. Fong Tan asked if the girl had group skills to attack the monsters, then he could deal the final blow and gain experience. Lolu said that while they are in a group, the experience is distributed evenly among all participants within the battle radius. Fong Tan said that in this case, they need to go urgently. Lolu asked where they should go and the guy replied that they should level up quickly. The guy took the girl to the Valley of the Lost. In this place there were rather large lizards that looked more like iguanas. Lolu objected that she didn't know why Fan Tan was there, but they couldn't do anything to the lizards, because they were immune to poisons. The Valley of the Lost is home to poisonous sand lizards, and is also susceptible to 20% magical attacks. Fan Tan told the girl that if she is attacked, she will have to work hard not to die. Her attacks have only 20% and 40% in case of a successful hit. Lolu asked the guy how a newbie could know so much. As Fong Tan already said, the poisonous lizard has low health, but it has high speed, recovery, followed by fast movement speed. The most important thing is that on the map provided by the bartender, points are marked where there is a chance to get pieces of the desert treasure map. The guy added that until they find all 50 pieces, they will not leave here and began to prepare for battle. Fong Tan pushed off with his supporting leg and ran straight towards the lizards. Frightened Lolu tried to stop the guy and asked him not to make such risky movements. But unexpectedly, Fong Tan was able to go invisible during his dash. Lolu thought that the invisibility skill can only be used when you are motionless, so she asked how the guy runs invisible. The lizards did not suspect anything because they did not see their killer, but Fong Tan finally showed up and killed one with the first blow. Fan Tan said that the card was certainly expensive, but it was completely worth the gold. Buying the card was the right decision. One of the lizards tried to attack Fong Tang while the guy was distracted by the map. But she didn't succeed and the killer quickly ripped open her back. Fong Tan explained that the death point for the poisonous sand lizard is on this pale red line. Another of the lizards tried to poison the guy, but it didn't work. Fong Tan dealt with these monsters too easily. Fong Tan said that level 32 wild monsters are not much different from ordinary monsters. Lolu called Fan Tang too strong, because in 2 seconds he kills monsters that are 20 levels higher than him. The girl noticed that, like last time, the guy was playing just for fun. Fong Tan asked Lolu how much her divine skill could restore health at one time, and the girl replied that 700. Fong Tan explained that the girl's abilities are not very suitable for killing lizards, but dealing with stunned ones is excellent. Lolu tried to attack one of the lying lizards and found it difficult. The girl thought that for each fatal blow she should spend 500 points. She asked if Fong Tan was mocking her. Fan Tan asked to trust him. Each of his combo skills is a passive skill. The more combos, the higher the damage. Lolu decided not to resist and help her friend. Fong Tan went into battle and told his partner that they were starting. Lolu struck a cluster of lizards and destroyed a lot of their health, and Fong Tang only had to carry out a combo and finish off each of the lizards. Laolu didn't understand how the guy did it all quickly and said that in a team battle he would be an excellent comrade. Then the girl was distracted by a call. It was the chairman. Fan Tan asked the girl why she stopped and turned around to see if she was okay. Lualu said that she received a call and asked Fong Tang to collect the treasures dropped from the monsters for now. Fong Tan thought that he had spent a lot of money on gargoyles and selling these tails could help his financial situation. The guy began collecting everything that fell from the lizards in order to sell it later. The guy received a notification that he had received a fragment of a treasure map. These were indeed fragments of a treasure map of a desert valley. The bartender was talking about it. Lolu asked the president about the decision to create a flying legion. The man said that their department came to the conclusion that this would be very useful and decided to create the Gargoyle Legion. The president said that although the gargoyles are at a low level, if there are many of them, then they are capable of something, and when they control the air, the guild's strength will increase even more. The president reminded Lolu that she must make every effort to recruit Fong Tang. Only with him can they carry out their plan. Lolu confirmed the president's words and said that she would guarantee the completion of the mission. Lolu had already hung up the phone, but especially in front of Fong Tan she pretended to talk about the position of the head of the city. Lualu said that she did not expect that a newcomer with a low level would give their guild a chance to level up. The girl said that the guy was already killing monsters of the 30th level, and soon he would be able to reach the 60th. She was going to bring the guy to the heights as quickly as possible. Fong Tan tried to figure out what was happening and asked the girl why she was looking at him like that. Lolu said that she doesn't want anything, just that when the guy finishes collecting, let him say so and they will continue to improve. The guy said that non-soul skills can increase proficiency as long as they are used, regardless of whether he attacks or not. Fong Tang also received a call. It was Tang Jian who invited the guy into the voice call. Tang Jian was surprised that Fong Tan was already level 20. The guy explained that they were helping him pump up, and Tang Jian called him to come down for dinner. Fong Tan told Lolu that he needed to go eat, and Lolu said that she thought the boys didn't need to eat at all. Lolu suggested that the guy continue all this after dinner. Fan Tan replied that of course they would continue, because the work was not finished yet. Lolu said goodbye to the guy and said that they would meet at 6:30. Fan Tan tried to stop the girl to find out what treasures could be found using this map. Lolu said that each card has its own deadline and if the guy doesn't make it in time, the treasures will disappear. The guy looked at his only fragment of the map. Fong Tan realized that no one knew what was inside the treasure. Tang Jian called Fong Tang to sit at the table to have dinner. The girl boasted that they beat the chemistry class again today. Fan Tan said that they were simply amazing and Tang Jian eagerly accepted the compliments. Tian Jian secretly told the guy that today Qin Yu, the vice president of the school's esports club, appeared at the internet cafe and watched the game next to her. Tang Jian asked the guy if he knew why she came to the cafe today and Fan Tan replied that he didn't know. Tang Jian said that the club is now recruiting, because many high school students are leaving. Tang Jian said that the club would be recruiting next week and invited him to join. Fan Tan replied that he didn't know yet. Tang Jian put her plate on the table and took a heavy breath as she prepared to say something. Tang Jian asked not to delay the decision because she had to train for the recruitment. Fan Tan said that the esports club does not seem interesting to him, but he needs to see what happens next. Fong Tan felt that his body was a little tense lately, and it seemed that he could not work on his physical condition while playing through the helmet, but he still had time until the evening to go for a run. Fan Tan ran around the house and started running in circles again, but then he saw a child who stopped Fong Tan. The boy said that someone asked him to give this to him and handed him a note. Fan Tan read there the inscription Esports Club, 3 Dragons. Fan Tan asked the child who gave him this note, and the boy replied that some weirdo gave him a candy and asked him to pass the note. Fang Tan realized that they wanted him to join the Esports Club, but who passed the note? Fang Tan returned home, and the first thing he did was put the helmet on his head and was transported to the game world. Lolu said that the guy came just in time, and Fang Tan suggested that they finish this quickly. Lolu told the guy that she would be broadcasting every evening on weekends. Fan Tan asked about the ethers. He thought that the girl was hinting that she could not help him. Lolu said that this is not true, it's just that everything they do will be able to be seen by other people live. Fang Tan did not object and said that he did not see any problem in this. Lolu was afraid that other guilds would be able to notice the guy's talent and lure him to their side. Lolu thought that she couldn't wait any longer and invited Fang Tan to join their guild, because she would be ashamed if people saw her helping a newcomer. Lolu began to advertise her guild and name all the advantages, and the guy was only worried about the fact that it was much more difficult to level up in the guild alone. Fang Tan was still wondering whether he should join the Lolu guild or remain alone. Fang Tan asked if any grades were required to join her guild. Joyful Lolu could not hide her delight. She finally managed to get a promising guy. Lolu said that initially an assessment was needed, but she assessed all the guy's skills in practice and that was enough for her. An invitation to the guild appeared in front of Fang Tan's face, which he quickly accepted. The system quickly congratulated the guy on being accepted into the guild and everyone in the chat welcomed him. Fang Tan, having heard all this, immediately muted the guild chat so as not to listen to all these messages. Fang Tan asked if they could start, and Lolu said that she would take care of the rest. The embarrassed guy asked to start everything as quickly as possible, and then a camera waved over the guys' heads, filming everything that was happening. To begin with, Shen Lolu greeted the audience and said that she was starting her show. Next, the girl introduced Fang Tan and said that she had come a long way to bring a newcomer to the guild. The guys continued to do their usual thing, namely fight with poisonous lizards. Lolu gave the command to fight and they, using their old tactics, began to kill all the lizards. Lolu also used her magic, and Fang Tan finished off all the lizards in a combo. Users in the chat began to support Lula and wish her luck in the battle with the lizards. Fang Tan cut up all the wounded lizards and the pair worked just fine as a team. The audience, of course, did not know Fang Tan and doubted his skills, thinking that he was an ordinary beginner. But he was praised by Lula, who noticed that every attack the guy made was critical. Fang Tan was cutting up another lizard directly, and Lolu continued to broadcast. Suddenly the guy was torn away from his prey due to an earthquake. The guy was twitching and could hardly stand on his feet in the mountain valley. Fang Tan asked Lolu to stop and stand still. The girl thought it was a break, but the force of the earthquake threw her into the air. Fang Tan grabbed Lolu by the waist to prevent the girl from getting hurt. The cause of the strong earthquake was a huge scorpion, which was waiting for the moment to emerge from behind the rocks. Lolu was horrified. She said that this is the boss of the 30th level, a poisonous scorpion. This monster has high damage and a lot of health, it requires a huge team. Fan Tan realized that he had no other options and he would have to try to defeat the huge monster.